Welcome. Green Light Podcast. It's a new year.
New morning.
Happy New Year. I almost tweeted last night the Eagles are not losing again this year, but I thought people would abuse me for months to come. You know, like people just not getting the joke, but making the joke me.
I got some English tea. It's a good way. I'm starting the new year off like this. No coffee. I'm switching to tea.
Yeah, that's good. I saw you were getting some shit about that from a bunch of guys that you can beat up online.
Shout out to Wawa.
I'm a nice guy, though. Online.
Oh, how emasculating is that? You're drinking tea.
I've been nicer online.
You get fucking curb stomped by a guy who drinks tea. Okay? Try that on for size.
That's two tea bags.
Hey, before we get into America's team, Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year.
New Year, new you. Right.
Right?
Hope you made it through the night.
It was funny. My first America's team, before even getting to America's teams, is football guys, because last night, Meg's up dealing with the baby at midnight. We did the kid countdown at 9 o'clock where they think we woke the baby up, the baby cared.
You guys
and
were
so the baby had
Japanese
a hard time.
at 6 p.m.
Yeah, exactly. Origato.
New Year.
Yeah.
Wayland.
And then we're in Berlin and all this stuff, but it gets to be 11:45, and I'm not even thinking about the time anymore because I'm just working on this show. And I call Nolan, and we're gonna go through the show. And at 12:05, I look up and I go, "Man, I'm really sorry." I said, "Happy New Year." I didn't even realize we totally missed midnight.
I had no idea either.
We were just ranting about the Ravens.
We're at the age now where you wake up the next morning to 8 a.m. texts that say Happy New Year.
Right.
It's not let's fuck with these people. I got one FaceTime from a guy in California, and I'm like, he just doesn't get it. Everybody else is kind of on.
Also, this texting on the holidays thing, I used to get stressed out about it until Happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas.
I was like,
Merry Christmas. I got to check and make sure this guy's not Jewish. I'm nervous. It's just a loaded thing around the holidays where people text you, but really it's not that hard. If somebody texts you, text them back. Otherwise, you don't have to worry about, did I text this person Merry Christmas?
It's what
it doesn't
the Facebook
matter.
poke is. It's like, are you still there?
And
what about the automatic automation stuff?
So just stop.
When you send Happy New Year, does the fireworks?
Oh, that's the worst.
You know what? I do like that.
You like the fireworks?
Do you?
Like when I say congrats, and I didn't even mean for it to be over the top, but Apple has done a number on making it special when you say
scares me.
So all I'm saying is there's no need to text anybody on a holiday that a birthday, sure.
I got one of those clock reminders last night. It was set a timer reminder for New Year's.
Not doing all that.
I was like, swipe left, clear.
Not doing all that. In fact, I'm just going to be on the phone.
Get out of my life.
As the ball drops. Ryan Seacrest was probably drunk somewhere. I was talking about the Ravens at midnight. So let's start with the layup line. And this is one of Kyle and I's favorite songs.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did I introduce you to this song?
Probably.
A few months back. I'm
sure we've enjoyed it together.
I have sent this song to 50 people, and the way I learned about it was Jim Harbaugh. This is Jim Harbaugh's pregame song, and tonight they get ready to play Alabama.
So
this is Jim Harbaugh's pregame song. It's called "The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald." Now this song
the
is
irony here.
Well, a little background about the song. The Edmund Fitzgerald was, of course, an American Great Lakes freighter that sank in Lake Superior during a storm on November 10th, 1975, with the loss of the entire crew of 29 men. Don't think it's too soon? Here we go. Go to the 214. Are you at 214? This is the best part of the... It's too rough to feed ya.
Pokemon.
The cook came up like, you're going to
listen, at 7 p.m., the main hatchway gave in. He said, fellas, it's been nice to know you. How hardcore is that?
That's the mindset.
That's the mindset
of
dudes on a freighter. They're just like, dude, no dinner, and I got worse news for you. We're going to sink.
And it's cold as fuck.
It's November.
Luckily for Jim Harbaugh, it's going to be the granddaddy.
They say if they'd have made it 100 or 15 miles more, they would have made it to Thunder Bay, and they would have been straight. But they sank, and nobody ever found the remains of the guys. They found the Edmund Fitzgerald.
Oh, they found him.
But Reed, this is the real layup line today. This is for the people at home.
What?
Let's go!
That's not. This is a trap.
Let's go!
That's crazy.
Okay. Lank. Lane,
So we're
Kyle.
doing this. Yeah. So we're doing this.
Turn it up! Sorry, I yelled into the
right now.
microphone. Don't give me 1 star like some of you.
Shout out to Jalen Milroe.
Not a fan of this.
Today's the day.
Lank!
Today's the day you let all the naysayers
Let a naysayer know!
Let's go! Today's the day!
Restore order, Nick Saban!
Woo!
I'm not on board with any of this. The Edmund Fitzgerald lands in Thunder Bay today at the granddaddy of them all, where my colleague Brock Vereen will be alongside the action.
Oh,
Okay.
On CBS.
Turn it off.
By the way,
Yeah.
Oregon's losing.
Okay.
6-0.
Hey,
So let's
God,
talk.
the haterade is pouring early.
RTR.
You tricked me into it.
RTR. Yeah.
You texted me about you did that.
I lured you
did that.
out into Lake Superior, and I
It's
sunk
okay.
your ass, dude. Because
Right, Dan Campbell. Look how that's working out for Dan Campbell.
I'm pulling. Okay, I'm pulling. Hey, got robbed, Kyle. We'll talk about it.
by pirates.
That
Well,
that
we're used
Kyle
to the
Long
deep
looking
water.
guy, John Skipper.
He's taller than me.
Bro, when
I got a lot of texts.
We're
about
gonna talk
Skipper.
about this later, so let's not go into the whole call. But John Skipper, like I was watching on the monitor my 5-month-old baby screaming, and she was red-faced and bald. And then on the TV there was John Skipper, who looked more like an angry baby than any
Dan
6'7" Dan
Dan
Skipper.
Skipper. He's 6'9".
Bro, the guy was.
And he does have the same exact beard hair combination that I do. And not that there's many combinations, but him and I, we've hit it on the nail on the head.
If your baby woke up one morning and looked like Dan Skipper, what do you do?
I would say, we're set here. We're set.
Oh man. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I guess the first thing we got to do is get into America's teams. But before we get into America's teams, Kyle, you've got who tonight? Michigan, I take it?
I'm going to be riding with Jim Harbaugh. I just think it's like the last hurrah, right? I don't really know the details of the Michigan Harbaugh saga,
right?
But like, there's a lot of people cheating in this college football.
Ohio State's supposedly hacking
State.
into people's. It's even worse. Ohio State's hacking into.
If they had
people's
some advanced scouting,
film.
so be it.
That's not so be it.
Are
though.
they gonna ban Jim Harbaugh forever, Nolan, from college?
No, he's going to ban himself. He's
So
gonna go-
is he done there next year?
I think he goes and takes a pro job.
He's going.
But he's allowed to go back to Michigan if
Yes.
he wants.
Oh yeah.
So this is his last hurrah. I hope he does take a pro job next year, and I am picking Michigan
Listen, okay, so
because of the antics that just.
so
took
I'm going to
place.
take Bama anyways, but then I'm going to parlay.
But he said Alabama minus 14.
Minus
That's
13 and
so,
a half,
So when I
bro.
say I'm taking Michigan, that's what I'm taking Michigan against.
Okay, you.
Minus 13 and a half.
Nate's betting an alternate.
Well, I got to
spread.
tell you, Kyle, that's an alternate spread. The real spread on the game is Michigan -2. So if you're going to bet Michigan,
Well,
you
then
got
I'm
to
gonna
hope they
I'm gonna
win
roll
by a
with Nick
field goal.
Saban. In a,
Okay,
in
exactly.
but that was the line I was presenting.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I want the people in the chat to understand that the
Kyle didn't
context-
know about alternate lines upstairs, and he was like, "I will bet you that. How much?"
I was like, how much do you want to bet?
That's a Lank situation for Vegas if Bama's laying 14.
But
Kyle.
can I just say that the ultimate bevel? That's the ultimate.
That's gonna
bevel
be at the
combo,
Rose Bowl? Are you kidding
But
me?
Every year, it's vitamin D deprived Eastern America, northeastern particularly. We don't get the sun for how long, you know? But then you show up and you get to watch the Rose Bowl, whether it's on TV or there in person. It's always great uniforms, great teams.
Yeah.
And you get the sunshine. The trees are green.
And they had some rain the last couple of days, so I think that's
Things
gonna
are
do something
popping.
for the. I mean,
I think the cameras are better at the Rose Bowl.
Reed's playing
Cameras are better at
CCR
the Rose Bowl.
or something on the. Anyways, so in the second game, I mean, the Cinderella story was not Wisconsin, Washington. Washington and Penix, like they've been the group that everybody wanted to see in the playoff because they're actually a true Cinderella story, unlike FSU, Kyle.
Are they a Cinderella story?
They are a Cinderella story, Kyle.
They've beaten up on juggernauts all
They
year.
haven't.
and
They
they've
haven't.
won close
but,
games.
but people wrote them off. They caught a bunch of points in the Pac-12 championship. They weren't supposed to beat Oregon the first time they played them. Penix has hurt himself a bunch. He's been in Indiana. He's at Washington. He's been in college football for like a decade, and I think this would be the most poetic in the last year of the Pac-12 for him to get. You're a Pac-12 guy, Kyle.
You haven't heard my pick.
Okay, who's your pick?
Well, you go ahead first.
I think Texas is probably the winner, but I had to sprinkle a little something on the money line and parlay them with Bama. So Kyle, you've got Washington and Michigan. That's all you had to say. He handed me a piece of paper.
So listen to this. Listen to this.
Yeah.
Fiji frat, University of Washington, futures bet The
that's
entire
crazy.
frat threw in $25 at the beginning of the year for UW to win the national championship. 2 games away now. Would you cash out?
I would cash out. What's the cash out look like?
Wait, so if they win, it's $50K, and they plan to
it's a
throw
lot of frat brothers.
a big party. I think they put
50K.
like 26 or
You got to take
2,700.
the upside of the 50.
I think they put 26 to $27,000. I mean, $2,700 on the initial bet.
$25 bets.
Yes, on the initial
20
bet.
ahead.
And what do you think the cash
25
out is?
ahead. I don't
If the
know.
cash out's like 20 grand, you take the 20 grand.
People
you
in
go to
the
the
chat,
nightclub.
what's the
said
the
they're gonna throw a
highest
party.
cash out you'd be willing to accept for this bet?
probably like
that
10
the
grand.
win would be 50K.
Yeah, I might take the 10, 15 grand and throw a killer party.
Yeah,
and-
absolutely.
for the national championship, and then root like hell for whoever's playing Washington. Just so you don't feel bad, because you're going to be rooting for UW anyways. It'd be nice to have a consolation deal.
I got
if
it.
you don't win it.
I thought it was a good story.
and that's knowing that the cash out was
Shout out
wise.
to the Fijians.
Okay, Fijians. Okay, here we go, Kyle. We've got America's teams.
Yeah, we do.
I'll start. Is it the Raptors? They lost to the Pistons.
The who?
Yeah.
Was it the Raptors?
Yeah, that's
The
right.
Raptors. Thank you, Canada, for joining the America's teams. I mean, Detroit needed a win ever so badly. They picked up a win. The Pistons hadn't won in like 30 games.
Almost, yeah.
They were about
Is
to
that
be
real?
for
It's real.
all. They were about to surpass like all sports,
Yeah.
like the longest losing streak for all major sports.
And
All
who
sports.
was
I
that?
think they're tied now.
Probably a
right?
baseball team or
28
something.
game loss streak, yeah.
I don't think. Well, we're an NFL team that goes 0-16 and 2-14. I've been on some teams that we lost 20-something games in a row. I
Oh
think.
man, all-time pro losing streak.
So
76ers.
So I feel
remember that. That was
I feel
crazy.
great about the Raptors
too.
doing that for our team in Detroit. Especially not that Detroit Lions fans care, but you were about to get robbed on national TV. It's good to get that win in
Do
basketball.
they have the cool jerseys with the Raptor dribbling the basketball?
I love
still?
those jerseys. Yeah.
Or do they have?
Yeah, they
those
still wear those
are the
sometimes.
throwbacks.
They still wear those sometimes.
Barney.
All right, my other America's team, Pop-Tart. I know I went on this big rant about how these bowl games are fucking it up, and largely they are, because for the most part it's too corporate, and when you go too corporate, it's like DirecTV puts a huge DirecTV on the trophy, and nobody's going to remember DirecTV in 20 years when that trophy's sitting in the hallway at USC.
That's a good point.
You know what I'm saying? They're not even going to have
The kids are
DirecTV
like,
anymore.
what's directive?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Directive.
Yeah, what's a directive? Is that like something I'm supposed to do? I have a TV inside my retina. I don't need dish. And honestly, with YouTube TV and all this shit, like, it's already over for DirecTV. But the point is, it's like, if you're going to go corporate, make it fun.
Bro.
And don't do it like, the closer you are to the big bowl games, don't do it. If you're like the Pop-Tart Bowl, perfect.
Bro,
And I thought it was incredible. The Pop-Tart coming out of the toaster,
Yes.
the Pop-Tart going David Blaine, disappearing into the toaster at the end of the game. Like,
The
what are they going to
trophy,
do?
And then
you
he
know, the
became
trophy.
You
beat
ate the
toaster.
trophy.
You
could eat well, the trophy was a toaster. You could put Pop-Tarts in, but the players ate a giant Pop-Tart at the end of the game, and their dirty gloves and all their germs that they've been out getting at the bowl game, they just shared them. It's like, it was kind of gross,
bro.
But
it
I
was
loved
great.
it.
It was great, and to think about how you can build off this, and maybe you think about like having the s'mores Pop-Tart and different flavor Pop-Tarts, and maybe like asking teams what their favorite is, and then that Pop-Tart gets to
Blueberry.
go in like to the toaster after the
Strawberry,
win.
yep.
Like I think this is going to be amazing
This is when
from
you know
here
it's
to
good.
go.
There was a shot of the Pop-Tart mascot behind the ref, and the ref was like giggling and trying to keep a straight face. And I said, "That's me in my kitchen at midnight, with the snacks behind me." And I'm giddy, and the snack's gonna get you, but you're trying not to pay attention to it. And if I had Pop-Tarts in my kitchen that night while that game was going on, I would have destroyed the whole box. Okay, and then lastly,
Pop-Tart as a team.
teams with black uniforms. The Saints, the Ravens this weekend. You had Missouri, you had Oklahoma State. Like, a lot of teams with black uniforms got the win this weekend and looked good doing it. Not saying the Ravens look great. I don't know why they went with that combination. But Missouri looked
You don't
awesome.
think the Ravens looked good?
No, they had the purple pants and the black top. I would have gone all
People
black.
said that was OBJ's, peak aesthetic.
That might be. Oh, I don't know about that. I mean,
That's what they were saying
The
on,
Giants
on the old X
uniform
app.
is-
And that was my initial reaction.
that's my reaction
But it's
too.
kind of his heel look.
I don't really have a lot of America's teams, Kyle. I guess America's team will be you at home, counting all your New Year's resolutions, and we'll see. You know, like it's just begun. So whatever you did this morning, you went for a run. Okay, we'll see. Check back in 2 weeks.
New Year's resolution: eat my boogers less, blow my nose more.
Do you eat your boogers?
I'm just kind of making a mockery of New Year's resolutions.
Oh my God.
America's teams. I do need a tissue though. If you guys have one back there.
Tissue.
America's teams. I'm gonna do like a look ahead instead of doing like power ranking NFL teams right now. I'm just gonna be saying these are the guys who I think you should buy into. If you're a fan and you want to become a fan of a team, we talked about the Chargers. It's good real estate value right there. Like they may suck at first, but you got the good pieces. For me, number one future.
Here, Kyle, blow your nose with this.
Thank you.
Big.
Number one future America's team. I just got to wipe. I think I got this schnoz, dude. Number one future America's team. UGA. University of Georgia.
Oh,
Football Academy.
can I? I forgot. Georgia's my fifth America's team.
Well, then we're going to
Okay,
share.
good. We'll
That's
share
a
it.
dynamite segue.
Yeah.
into
So
my number one.
Talk about the future, and I want to talk about this weekend.
Well, I'm going to talk about the future because of this. Like, if you're a Georgia football player, there's nowhere that you're going to transfer to give yourself a better chance to win. Like, you're surrounded by the best. Georgia is what Alabama was for so long, where it's like, no, bro. When we get to the league, we look at the guys in our lot, and like Eddie Jackson came to the league from Alabama, and he looked at me dead in the eye and was like, "Oh, we could have beat y'all last year," and I'm like, I was like, "You're a fucking kid. You don't even know what you're talking about." And then I watched him play, and I see all the guys he played with play.
You said he could have beat the Bears?
Yeah, it was, during training camp. He said that in the locker room, and all the guys in the locker room were like, somebody kill him.
Here's the thing. That guy
He
on
looked
the,
at he was like, no.
that guy on the
He
Panthers.
does like, nah, bro, we would have beat y'all ass.
That guy on the
I'm like,
I love that.
Like,
that guy on the Panthers this year, he's the guy from Alabama 2 years ago. So
No,
it's
Eddie
just a little
Jackson,
different.
it was 20.
No, I know. I'm just talking about.
This was
year to
Jalen
year.
Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa. These were the guys that he was playing with.
Yeah.
So Georgia is that now, number one America's team. We don't even transfer. We're just going to keep this stock rising. It's like magnetic. There's a game called Snake.io on the phone where you move the snake around, you eat other snakes, you get bigger and bigger. Georgia is just going to.
You think they're like snake eyes?
They're just going to keep getting bigger unless they eat themselves.
Can I tell you something about Georgia this weekend? Because I really did write this down, but as you know, like my notes are everywhere. Georgia is an America's team for taking care of Florida State. And I know people are going to say, Florida State, the way they lost because of all the opt-outs and everything doesn't change anything about the Florida State argument for the playoff. And you're right. It wasn't a good argument in the first place. I think that's the whole thing. Like, for you to prove to people that you deserve to be there, you would have had to play Georgia tough or beat Georgia. And your guys opted out. That was their decision. So part of being a team is deciding that something's important enough to you. And if it were more important to prove that point, guys would have played. Okay, and I think Georgia's depth is better than your depth. And I don't care how many videos Danny Cannell puts out where he's walking through his giant rental home. That's what Danny's doing. Danny, it's a nice fucking place. A lot of staircases though. So I don't know what you want if you're a Florida State fan, but that was your chance. And I think Georgia's an America's team for just quieting that down. If anything, though, people made more noise after the game, but we just shouldn't go back to this argument anymore because it was so fucking ugly. And Kirby Smart, I've seen this a couple years in a row where they get into a bowl game, and the bowl game might not mean that much to other people, but they look hungry to win these bowl games. And that was why betting them in the first half was like free money. And Kirby Smart put it this way. He said, guys, come back. If you want to come back and play for the seniors. If you don't want to play for the seniors, I respect it.
So what do you think about what I said about the future?
I love Kirby Smart.
Are you gonna? Is there a coach you'd rather play for right now?
No, I think Kirby Smart. He's up there.
Locker room you'd rather be a part of?
He's up there.
Deion Sanders.
Is there a town you'd rather have backing you?
Than Athens. I don't know. I mean, Lane Kiffin in Oxford sounds fun too.
Man, did you see the scoreboard pic he posted?
Yeah.
Bro, I want to go to
Lane.
Colorado.
Anyways, I just think they're an America's
Lane,
team.
Good for you. You might be America's team, Lane Kiffin.
I think they're an America's team because they shut up the
I
noise.
said what I said, Chris.
Yeah.
I don't feel bad about it.
Yeah.
America's team, Lane Kiffin as well. Number 2, the Chicago Bears. We've talked about the Bears on this show, but I truly feel like the future is so bright in Chicago. And they have a lot of decisions to make, and they're good problems to have. Who's the quarterback going to be? Well, the stadiums seem to understand that. We want Fields. We want Fields. Justin Fields getting interviewed after the game. It's a dream come true, for this guy to do the things he does. Eddie Jackson, the same guy we were just talking about, who's still on that defense, says the guy's a magician. there's a certain way that the Bears play football with Fields at quarterback, and it's awesome to see. Is Eberflus going to be the head coach? What are they going to do at the OC position? Who are the picks going to be? Are they going to trade the number one? In an alternate universe, are you going to go after a quarterback and deal to Atlanta? And well, here's the funny thing. The irony of yesterday being a quote-unquote tryout game against Atlanta for Fields. People in our studio were like, yeah, it's a great opportunity for him to showcase his skills to Atlanta. It ended up being a game that, with conviction, people said that Justin Fields is the Bears quarterback.
So do you want to talk about this now and not save it for later?
I'm doing my...
No, I know, because we got to hit the Fields thing now or later. We're gonna get into the nitty gritty of what they should do.
Sure.
Okay, they should keep him.
Yeah,
they should keep him. I mean, the decision has been made. I mean, to me, the decision has been made for weeks now. You know what I mean? And I guess this is
there would be a mutiny there.
Here, that's my thing, Kyle. Like he has decided. The team has decided.
That's our guy.
Eberflus. You talk about him. A lot of times you let the team decide at the end of the season. The team has decided by playing hard and beating teams that are in the thick of it. Like Atlanta had to win that game to go to the playoffs.
Yeah.
And you fucking killed them, dude. And Justin Fields made some great plays. He missed a couple throws, but like so did every quarter. You know what Josh Allen did yesterday? He missed 15 throws. And so the point is, when it comes to Justin Fields, the decision has been made. The only decision you have to make is who's the offensive coordinator.
Yes.
And that's a huge decision.
And who you draft.
Huh?
Those are the decisions you have to make.
Because here's what you could be looking at next year, Kyle, if you stick with Justin Fields. Marvin Harrison, the top tackle, you re-sign Mooney.
Or Brock Bowers. I like their tackles. Braxton Jones, Darnell Wright. I don't think you change a thing.
Or you could move one of them inside.
Yeah.
Like the point is, look at that group outside and tell me, for a team that's just beaten a number of playoff teams or teams that are in contention for the playoffs, that beat the Lions, a team that's damn good, that beat the Vikings a couple weeks ago when the Vikings were hotter, that beat the Falcons with their season on the line. If this is your floor, Kyle, why would you move on? 6 weeks ago, it was the safe decision. You could feel it to trade Justin Fields. It was the safe decision. Now tell me what decision feels more unsafe if you're Ryan Poles or Ian Cunningham.
I'm just writing down on a piece of paper right here. I have the initials MHJ, CK, Fields, BB, DJ Moore. Marvin Harrison Jr., Brock Bowers in this offense with Cole Kmet, the things he's able to do and has done for a long time. His availability in the offense is great. The leadership, Bowers would be a seamless transition. Fields, I mean, he's special. And I think this will be the year where we truly see a true bump in statistics.
So you're keeping him?
I'm keeping Fields.
Okay, because yesterday you were kind of like,
No, I wasn't.
You were like,
you want to read my tweet on the show?
You got to look at the trade package.
You want to read my tweet on the show?
You read it.
No, you just brought it up.
Well, don't get upset.
What I said was, here are the options that Ryan Poles and the Bears have to
consider. Okay, and if that's the case, I don't even think you need to consider it.
So you just did what Twitter did to me yesterday.
Well, no, what I heard yesterday was over and over again that they had to look at the options, which is not a hot take. It's not a hot take. I'm just trying to get the cards on the table here.
Okay.
Because if they look at the options.
If I'm the Bears brass, I have to at least see what the offer sheet looks like for some of these teams that are obviously going to be suitors for Justin Fields. If the offer is good, in their opinion, send it. Now, what that threshold for good is, I don't know. And it could be great based on the way Fields has played. He'll thrive elsewhere. We do know that. And we'll have even more to show for
And the reason I bring it up is because I
him?
think it's a good point. A lot of people would say, look at the picks. You have to look at the picks. Nobody's going to make a decision right now. Like, even if the right decision is Fields, organizations don't just say.
There's somebody in that building,
that's going to say, we need to look at the picks.
And Caleb Williams.
And I think
they say fuck picks. It's like Caleb blinders.
Or Caleb blinders.
Maggie had for Mahomes.
Here's what you have to be careful with. And I'm not saying you, Kyle, so don't read this wrong. But what I am saying is for anybody that's like, look at the picks. When you start looking at things that aren't real yet, they can look like something that it's not going to. I mean, look at Carolina. Look at Carolina and all they gave up to get Bryce Young. How do you think Bryce Young would look in Chicago right now with that offense? Not the way Justin Fields looks. And like I said, like your floor. I know what the floor looks like with a rookie quarterback. You really think you can? If you go backwards, they'll never let you live it down unless the guy's like special.
It'll just be the next recycle of the cycle.
You'll never be able to go back.
One that I lived through a bunch.
What?
That cycle of
New QBs.
New QBs.
Just new QB, new coach, new OC, new QB coach. Hi, I'm
Yes.
coach such and such.
Yes.
Like you start to forget names. Bo Hardegree is the interim OC for the Raiders, and I was like, I forget where and when I had him.
Well, that's the point.
And I'm sure you know the same feeling.
It's so many coaches coming through the building. You start over again. I mean, for everybody on the team, you talk about DJ Moore, Eddie Jackson, saying like when you have your wide receiver, your number one being like he's the guy. You kind of like he's not just saying that for no reason. He's not saying he deserves a chance. He's saying he's the guy. So trust players. You know what I'm saying? Like I know there's some people that have been down on Justin Fields this year.
Look at the locker room videos in there, some of the Instagram lives from these guys, and you can attest to this, Nate. You've been a teammate who's excited to be with other teammates, and Fields is featured in these Instagram lives. They're all dancing. They're all doing their thing. They have fun together. They play for Fields. They obviously get up for Eberflus.
Yeah.
But to your point, the big question is going to be the offensive coordinator.
One thing that was brought up last night was when it came to Jalen Hurts' development, because he wasn't always Jalen Hurts of last year, and you can see it this year. There was a year where they loaded up, they gave him the weapons, and he had that MVP run. I think that's in Justin Fields' body.
Yes.
Like if it's in Jalen Hurts' body, it's in Justin
And the
Fields'
puzzle-
body. And I'm
the
not
puzzle-
picking Justin over Jalen, but what I am saying is Justin has more talent. Okay, take that how you will.
He's the most talented guy on the field at any given moment.
Fucking the guy changes, and so you take him out of these situations. And you put a Caleb Williams in there. What does Caleb Williams look like when the pocket collapses and they're backed
And he
up
could
and
look
he breaks?
great, but I promise you, he's not going to look better than Justin Fields.
He's
It's
not
just
getting out
hard
of those sacks that Justin Fields escaped from yesterday.
Another thing is this. I'm not sure how relevant this is, but the USC kid last week looked insane
He
game.
set a record for USC.
So you tell me. There's too much unknown, and when you have
This
a known
game is
commodity,
crazy.
When you have a known commodity, it's not like having a game manager known commodity. You have a guy with a high ceiling.
But go get Marvin Harrison Jr., right, Chris?
You got to get a wide receiver, right, and just
the
load
wide
up.
receiver.
But imagine you
And
have
it's one of those drafts where it's the wide receiver.
Imagine you have that defense and then that offense. Like, how many groups in the NFL next year would have a better group outside that you could say for sure?
So that's why the Bears
So
are the number 2
they could be America's team
team
next year.
behind the. Yeah, and Bears fans, look, this is great news. I just talked about the Georgia Bulldogs and Kirby Smart and their dynasty that they're building. The Bears have that ability. And I know Ryan Poles and we know Ian Yates Cunningham. Those are bright young minds in the game of football that you got to get to know because they're making the right decisions and they will continue to. Number 3.
Real quick, somebody just typed this. Caleb Williams didn't have Chicago on his list of teams he would go to. I think that's based off that tweet where he's liking a tweet
It's an aggregate account.
where somebody says Chicago's
Sleuth.
not right for this guy, and he likes the tweet, and he's like, basically by liking that tweet saying, yeah, I see you, bitch. Like, fuck you. Like I like your
There's multiple ways to interpret that.
But to me, the one way to interpret that is I'm not going to go play for
What
Chicago.
are they saying? Do they like
Why
what we
not?
say about
Who wouldn't want to go play for
It's the
Chicago
best
right
city-
now?
it's-
Of all the teams in the top 5, where would you want to play if you were quarterback? You want to go to New England? Nah.
Like I don't know, but I don't know that kid's background. Like I don't know his background. Like I don't know like where he has family or where he doesn't have family. Maybe
Well, I'll tell you what,
something like
Chicago's
that.
right in the middle of the country.
Yeah, family on all
Easy
sides.
for everybody.
I guess
If you
so.
go to
Surrounded by
if you go to
family.
Tankathon NFL right now, which is a great website, it just gives you a draft order.
Percentages
It's pretty. But Washington is hot on Caleb
DC,
Williams.
yeah.
Okay, New England. I wouldn't want to go
Magic
play in New
Johnson,
England
bro.
before I'd want to go play in Chicago. They have everything there for you. You wouldn't want to go to Washington over Chicago if you're a football guy.
Well, bro, you're thinking you have to think like a young 20-something-year-old. Like
How do you know
he's
how
not
he's
every
thinking?
young
That's-
20.
I'm
How
just-
do you know how he's thinking?
I mean, the fact that he liked that tweet, like I don't know. There's a lot of things he's done that
I
I
don't
know.
see it that way. I think we're willingly jumping out of the gym for a narrative.
Him saying that he wants to go ball up and cry with his dog, like after a loss, like who knows what he's thinking about? It's just saying like things like that. It's just like, why even put that out there? Why say that stuff? Why like a tweet when you kind of know everyone's watching and looking at it?
But that's the part about being 20. I don't think you're thinking
Yeah.
that way,
Yeah.
that everybody's watching. I just think you're just like, I have done things.
And that's
on
what I
social-
mean. Like I don't know what like why he would like if it is leaning towards I don't want to go to Chicago. That's why I like this tweet. Or like you said, like
I know
more
why.
Like,
This team's
I
getting
know
good
why.
traction.
Hey, it is. And let me tell you this. Out of the top 5, there's no team I'd rather go play for than the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, let's go.
Not only is it a great football city, but they've got a fucking defense lined up. They might have stability if Eberflus is back. the coordinator, who knows? That's the biggest decision they have to make, but everything's there for you. They have better weapons than New England, better weapons than Washington, better defense than both those teams. Arizona.
Out of the top 5, though, like, wouldn't you, like, if you're a young quarterback, you may be thinking about, like, who has the best O-line, like, where I'm going to be maybe protected.
And in a year, they might have the best O-line out of that group. They might have it right now. New England, Washington, Chicago. I don't think there's a lot separating those groups.
Go look at the stats on the Washington stuff. Granted, we've talked about it's a lot.
And again, to compound the whole thing, if Caleb Williams is in there, how much worse does that offensive line look statistically?
Right.
Okay, that was good.
Yeah.
We got it out.
Yeah, I just wanted to get it out there because we had
cathartic.
it for later, but it was good because he said, "Well, it's winners."
Well,
It's winners.
the breaks.
Well, I got to know your take because the
But this is
Chicago
my
thing,
team, though.
the Chicago thing, it's
I
the
wanted
Fields
to be clear.
thing has been.
I'm sticking with Justin Fields. Now you
Okay.
got to pay the guy,
Okay.
and that's going to be a bridge you got to cross. Okay, number 3, the Indianapolis Colts. We love Shane Steichen. We love all these coordinators that came from Philly last year, huh?
Yep.
Because the other team I got on the list is the Cardinals.
Yep.
Jonathan Gannon going up and doing his thing. But for the Colts, I can't wait to see Anthony Richardson in his second year. He's been in all these meetings.
Mm-hmm.
He's heard the breakdown of the film every week.
Mm-hmm.
There is stuff to be gained in terms of your progression as a quarterback, as an offensive mind. So for this year, if Anthony took it the right way, which I'm sure he did under Shane, I mean, you can't help but try to latch onto that team and say they're going to be damn good for a while, just based on how they performed this year. So the Colts are number 3, Cardinals number 4, and the Packers are number 5.
How about the Texans?
Well, the Texans are already there.
No, I mean, yeah, but next year, you think about the way we said this earlier in the year, the way a whole generation of Dallas fans grew up, like watching C.J. Stroud play, like there could be a whole generation of Houston fans, and I think
Absolutely.
Hey, I want to throw one more in the well, there's a lot going on this year, and there could be some unrest. So I was thinking like the National Guard, you know, and like FEMA and stuff like that.
Oxnard, FEMA.
You know, it's going to be a real shit show.
It's getting wild. I did notice that there was a lot of people enjoying the surf on the
got
West Coast.
Yeah, big waves. There's big waves.
Big waves.
Zuckerberg's got a bunker.
There were people crying and laughing and going sick in the same video. I was like,
because I thought it was a tsunami. If I was there, I'm like, we got tsunami. Where was the warning? All right. So we're done with.
there were no horns.
There were no horns. We're done with America's teams. We have an ad read, and then we're going to get into the slate, starting with Baltimore and Miami. So for those of you who came here for that, you're going to get it. You also get the Philly thing soon. Okay.
And we hope you enjoyed America's teams.
So Monday is still game day, and game day is the perfect pizza day. So make Little Caesars the official pizza sponsor of the NFL part of your game day. Order online during our Pizza pregame, 1 hour before and 3 hours after NFL kickoffs, plus all Sunday, to have your NFL game day covered. Choose your favorite Little Caesars pizza or pick the toppings you crave. It's a pizza win. And speaking of winning, everyone scores with convenient delivery or our in-store pizza portal pickup. So grab some friends, order your Little Caesars, and enjoy during the games. Guys, it's that
Nicely
simple.
done, Chris.
Pizza. Okay? And, you know, we're going to talk about Baltimore and Miami now. And so I think it played out even more on the nose than what I thought, but Baltimore's the better team. They're the more physical team. And I think more than anything, they're more confident. And so, you know, like confidence is a big thing we've been talking about with the Dolphins. You know, they're every week it's like they say we can't beat anybody good. They say we can't beat anybody good. You beat Dallas. Guys, see we can beat good teams. You know, like trying to build the confidence. Prove it to themselves. And that's why I thought last week when they played
the Ravens just know.
When they played Dallas last week and they got those 2 big shots off the bat, which I got to give Tua a lot of credit for, those were big-time throws. They gave them confidence in that game. And, you know, I think you come to Baltimore this week, and we had Zach Sealer on. You talk about the physicality. He played in Baltimore. He knows what it's about. But it's also this confidence that both the Harbaugh brothers have. And Jim has it one way, and it rubs people a lot of the wrong way. And John's like the guy that is a little bit more
buffed out.
He's just a little bit more buffed out, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, but he's still got that asshole confidence about him. And I think it comes down to one play that encapsulated the whole game. Because there was that same conversation, who was going to be chasing who in this game. Because early on, even though the Ravens had them in 3rd and long in the red zone, they with Kyle Hamilton down and Stevens down, they were getting the ball moved on them, but they had chances. But the bottom line is Cheetah misses that touchdown in the end zone, you're kind of wondering, is Baltimore going to get tight at some point if they had converted and been down? You know, if Cheetah caught the ball, Baltimore's down.
Yeah, that's brutal.
I think the answer is you wouldn't have been able to keep up. And I think the answer is the rest of the game provided you the answer, but that 4th and 7. That was the play of the game. And it was the play it's the play that perfectly encapsulates Baltimore mindset yesterday. They weren't worried about who's going to be out in front. They weren't racing Miami. They were racing themselves. Like 4th and 7, it's 21-13. You get the ball out of the half. Okay, so we often talk about the middle 8. So what do you want to do here? You get the best kicker in the world. It's 4th and 7. You just missed on 3rd down for the first time like all game. And you've got a chance to kick this field goal and go up 24-13. 2-score lead going into half against this explosive offense. Even though they average about 19 points, which I've said for a month now in games they play playoff teams, and where did they land in this game? 19 points. Okay, so when I'm right about some shit. But Baltimore, right? But Baltimore, 4th and 7, the safe play would be kick a field goal, get a stop, take this to the half. Worst case scenario, you're still up. Lead. They say, fuck that. They go 4th and 7. They throw the ball to Likely, makes a one-handed catch, and he's out the gate.
One-handed left-handed catch, tucks it, doesn't touch it with his right hand, and then proceeds
Ricard had a one-hander.
Run it in.
I mean, but
Ricard had a one-hander just like it.
Those were the type of decisions because the 2 possessions prior, and we're fans, and we're sitting here, and I got money on Baltimore. And although I say –
who doesn't?
And I say although a lot of people – although Miami averages 19 points a game in these big games, I'm still waiting for the game that they score 30. And I'm like, I hope it's not today. And before the half, they got the ball with 9 minutes to go, and Baltimore's starting to get the run game going to get over midfield, and you're thinking, slow down a little bit. Like if you can time this up, you can get a stop and get a 2-for-1 and that sort of thing. But instead, they take a shot to Beckham. And Odell Beckham, like, that's why he's here. You can say Odell's not a top 5 wide receiver anymore, not a top 10 wide receiver anymore, whatever you want to say. But when there's a big 50-50 ball or a shot you want to take, is there anybody better
ball skills
than him with the ball skills and turning that right ankle and getting both feet down?
Crazy.
So they take a shot there. And then the one that was really confounding to me was they get the ball and, there's like 5-6 minutes to go before the half. And I'm like, okay, this is the time you have a big chunk drive where you eat the clock up and you secure the 2-for-1. Fuck it. Shot the Flowers. They were not playing against Miami. They were playing against themselves. They were trying to see how great they could be that day offensively, and it was incredible.
It was obvious.
It was incredible.
Like you said, that confidence stuff is it's worth its weight in gold. And all levels of that team on both sides of the football have, at all the key positions.
Special teams out of the half.
They are so confident. They are so confident, and we've talked about the way that Roquan lays the gauntlet down for this team, and I have no doubt that this week, after some of the comments, it's evident to me that Lamar reads Twitter, okay? He sees the things that we say, for better or worse, and obviously it's
be like Mike
quarterback.
Flores.
it's for fucking better. That was some quarterbacky shit I saw yesterday.
That's some MVP shit.
And there's sometimes
where
I'm playing Madden where I just throw it 60 times and I'm going to have 400 yards, but I'm going to have like a 50% completion percentage. Lamar was like, I'm going to go Baker Mayfield this bitch, 158-3, go out there and have a perfect day. And to your point, like, John Harbaugh's a big part of that. And it's dated back to the confidence that he showed in his offense years ago. And he said, what do you guys want to do? He's like, fuck it, coach, we want to go for it. That's the Ravens way. That's the Raven way.
When they went out back on the field on 4th and 7 and had the offense, we were like, what are they doing?
And Harbaugh clearly had a problem with the way that McDaniel ran the score up on.
Well, I kind of wondered after the game if Sean Payton and Harbaugh are buddies.
Yeah, like
to your point. And there was a Dolphins reporter who was down there complaining about them airing it out with the backup. I'm like, oh, that's really rich.
Snoop, stop.
Yeah, stop. Like, so the point is, So the point I want to make is they have the confidence, they have the players, they have the MVP where they trust him enough on 4th and 7 with everything that was at stake before the half to go. And I think Tua is a good player, good quarterback. We do this all the time. And, you want me to stop doing it, stop assaulting me in my mentions every time you guys run up 30 points on the Jets. In these games, in the beginning of the game, the windows were there, and those linebackers, if you have good linebackers, eventually those hook windows and those quick throws, they go away.
They close a lot quicker.
And, for Baltimore, they might be saying, hey, we'll give them the windows early, and then we're going to take them away. And you could feel a point in the game where it switched. And not only was it being down and having to play under pressure, but it was, we're taking those windows away. You sail some balls, there's some turnovers, but more than anything, that front just started to get there. And the pressure in the middle of the pocket is really tough for him because of his size and that sort of thing. And I think, when you talk about confidence and the 4th and 7 juxtaposed to, the Dolphins coming out in the third quarter, they're down 22 points. They got they're supposed to be like the Golden State Warriors, no lead safe, right?
Yeah.
That's what the Chiefs were when they played Houston a couple years ago in the playoffs. That's not this group. Because on 3rd and 15, they're checking down one read. Third and 15, they're checking down one read. 3rd and 20, they're checking down one read. So they're not they've kind of said, hey, there's just no way we can get back in this game, and it's only going to get worse. And you could feel that when the tide turned. I know Claypool dropped the touchdown. I know Cheetah dropped the touchdown, but that's not the difference in the game. Baltimore's that much better, not just than Miami, than all the teams in the AFC. Yeah. And there's one team to me that, if they go in to Baltimore in the playoffs, might have a chance to win.
3, 2, 1.
Cleveland.
Bills and Cleveland. I should have put Cleveland in there.
What?
I think Cleveland.
Cleveland for sure. Bills and Cleveland.
But yeah, Bills.
I mean, I guess
definitely
anybody's got a shot to beat anybody. I just put Baltimore at a different level, and I knew that this was the case in the AFC.
Bills,
if they have, the Bills, bro.
They're just how can you trust them enough to even say that?
Good Josh Allen.
Yeah,
he's just so
if good
finicky,
if good Josh Allen shows up, then they beat the Bills. But the Ravens.
But if he doesn't, they get a 50-piece put on them.
But we're talking about, can they beat the Ravens?
Okay.
So that's what I'm saying. Is
there's 2 teams that I feel I would.
If one of the teams shows up, they have a shot. And for Cleveland, we're going to talk about them in a little bit. But the whole point is, I think with the confidence this team has, they've already hit bumps in the road that would have sunk other offenses. Okay, like losing Mark Andrews, then losing Keaton Mitchell. Yeah. You know what championship teams have? They have guys that step up.
Next man up mentality.
Likely, and Justice Hill, who I thought was great, from the get-go this year. He gave them a different look than Gus. He gave them a different look than any of their guys. He made them explosive. The screen game. Some of the different kind of run concepts they can use with him out of the backfield as a kick returner. I can remember our Super Bowl year. We lost Sproles. He was a huge deal. This guy's like a Hall of Famer. And you know who stepped up? All those running backs. Jay Ajayi, Corey Clement. There were a number of guys. Yeah, that really stepped up. And Jason Peters went down, who stepped up. Big V, got himself a contract. So, and then he gets to Detroit and he's not as good, right? But the point is, when you're on a team like this, you got to have the depth pieces and you got to have the support system to elevate those guys. They have this. And so.
Hey, and want to say shout out to UVA alum Morgan Moses on that O-line and playing very well, running down, cleaning it off the
He's
pile.
had a really good career, man.
Yeah, he really has.
He's been awesome. And what a good guy.
He's a guy that he's had injuries before, but to see him still out there playing well and being part of maybe an MVP and MVP offense right now, if Lamar ends up getting it, you don't get that without your O-line. Everyone up front playing very well week to week, and that's what the Ravens O-line have been doing.
And they have played well, but they've also had a couple bumps in the road where Ronnie Stanley's been hurt and he hasn't played well. And so the point, an MVP is perfectly encapsulated in this guy, Lamar Jackson. I mean, he's everything you want in an MVP. You throw the stats out, because when I watch the Ravens, they should not be this good. It's just and it's not just the quarterback offensively, but Tua, Brock Purdy, Brock Purdy makes some plays off platform. You talk about one-read guys and Goff maybe guessing at times or whatever. You want to throw people in that conversation that Cam Newton was talking about. But, you can see when Tua's off his first read and it's not 2 seconds, it could be a long down, and it's dangerous. Okay? And with Lamar, it's the more time that passes in the pocket, the more dangerous he is.
Yeah.
Now, he can also take the quick reads, and he can do the 1-2-3 thing, but watch his plays and the way they develop. And what they had a 3-man route maxed up yesterday. He's just back there baking a cake, eyeing the field, and when somebody gets open, he hits them. And that's not what you see out of some other offenses.
Honestly, it looks like to what you were saying, almost like 2 out of 4 guys have to win immediately on a rush, like for you guys to like disrupt and get to Lamar Jackson, because the way, like you said, that when a play is extended, that after the initial like, oh my God, he's gonna get sacked. Once you realize he's not gonna get sacked, it's almost like, oh, he's about to get 20 yards.
You're rushing to contain, not to get home. Almost like you're rushing to keep him home.
But it's just like he's a guy. Even when you're rushing to contain, he still finds a way.
He changes the way people rush. So like right off the bat, you have to spend more time in meetings because of this guy. He changes the aggressiveness that you guys play with and the whole thing. And like I said, they're going to be really hard to beat at home. There's a couple teams that might have a shot, but more than anything, this win sets up 2 things, okay, in Week 18. The number one thing it sets up is Baltimore and Pittsburgh. In Pittsburgh, having a chance to go to the playoffs, okay?
Never die.
And on top of that, if Pittsburgh wins this game, then we'll talk about Buffalo in a second, but Buffalo then has to win to get in.
And
Okay.
Pittsburgh is a 4-point favorite, so Vegas seems to think that the Ravens will be resting.
And this is an interesting deal because I just want to say this about Pittsburgh. The run game looked awesome yesterday. They knew if they went up to Seattle and got the run game going, they could win that game. They did, but more than anything, Mason Rudolph, the throws that he made at some points of the game were legitimate big boy throws. They weren't just like game manager throws.
What is the deal here? I didn't have that on my fucking bingo.
I didn't have it on my bingo card either, but when he played a couple years ago, who was he throwing the ball to? George Pickens makes a big difference. And I know he didn't have
It's just been
a
while.
million
I
catches.
Forget. You forget.
But over the last 2 weeks, the big shots, the explosive that he's been able to unlock to Pickens and the new offense. Like, I want to be fair to Kenny Pickett. Like, I think if Pickett was healthy, you'd see some progression as well, and they might not have had to win that game. But the point is, for your boy, 8.5 wins was the win total. And I thought that was dead in the dirt when Kenny Pickett got hurt at the end of the Cardinals game. I cannot believe what a start to the season. Then between wins 7 and 8, what a crater. And then what a comeback to go 8 and 9 and put yourself in a position now with Mike Tomlin again not losing in a season to play the Ravens, a team that even if the Ravens weren't resting guys, you've already beat them.
Oh, call the ambulance.
But not for Mike Tomlin.
Not for Mike Tomlin.
So if they win, they're in?
If they win and Buffalo loses, they're in.
Yeah.
Now, I think there's another Jacksonville
Are they buying
element to
strippers
this.
for
If
the
Jacksonville
Buffalo
loses and they win, they could get in. They could also get in with a Colts-Texans tie.
So there's a couple things that could happen, but the simplest way to get there is they got to win, and then they root for Miami.
Yep.
Okay, and
Funniest meme going around is this is Martin Lawrence in the movie Life, and at one point he like leans up and he's like, no one wants to hear that bullshit. And it's like Mike Tomlin, every time you guys think he's not
dead.
he's not
dead. And that's one of the reasons we said a couple weeks ago, like, wait till the end of the season.
Yeah.
Just wait. Because if they get in the playoffs, like, what are you going to do? You're going to fire him for doing the same thing he's been doing for years? I mean, and actually, like, a pretty impressive job, even though he put himself in this situation in some ways.
I thought they were past the point of no return with this roster and quarterback situation, and fans are fed up with the star.
It was easy to.
They just show up and win on the road in that fashion. It's awesome to see.
And shout out to Mason Rudolph for like just like looking at the micro inside. It's just like keep throwing the ball to Pickens like right now when all this like heat is on him.
Keep it simple.
And, like, you know what I'm saying? And like give him a chance to kind of like redeem himself with the fans and everyone. And he did that over the last couple of weeks. And like a quarterback doesn't really have to do that. Like, yeah, you make the plays, but it's just something that it's cool that they still have a chance, knowing it looked like a dumpster fire like just 2 to 3 weeks ago.
And I think at the end of this game, they forced a big turnover, right? Because with Geno the last couple of weeks, there's been magic all year with him, and you did not want to defend a touchdown going in at the end of that game for Seattle. And I just thought this was a huge win for them. They hit rock bottom and they did something about it, which to me like is evidence that there is still a sliver of culture there. Yeah. And so like while the job might be tough, they're getting it done. And so, when you look at Baltimore in resting starters, Baltimore has a history. 2019, they were the 1 seed. They sat Lamar, Yonda, Earl Thomas, Ingram, Brandon Williams. They lost the next game, if you remember that, in the divisional round they got the bye, then they lost. And so part of the concern for me, and that was to the Titans, who barely threw the ball, and they ran the ball. And, late in the season, you need those run fits. So if you're not going to get if you're not going to get the reps in a game, you better be practicing hard in the whole thing. Because like New England, when I was there in 2016, we had to play like a half, and then I got to stay in a little bit because I had some incentives, and I hit the incentives. So thank you, Bill.
That's awesome.
But on top of that, I think playing that half really kept us sharp. And I know that like Brandon Staley got killed for this last year, and sometimes because the guy is thought of as an idiot, people are like, he's just an idiot. And who got hurt? It was Mike Williams got hurt.
Yeah.
And then they blow the game in LA or in Jacksonville, and people are trying to connect the dots and that sort of thing. But I can connect the dots to teams that sit people too much and end up in trouble. And, you know, I had Reed look this up. Since 2005, teams that rested starters or sat the QB before half in Week 18 are 11-14 in their next playoff game. And then teams that did not rest their starters in Week 18 are 30-9. So I'm not saying you don't rest your starters. And Brandon Staley definitely, you know, maybe kept Mike Williams in too long or that sort of thing. But it's a chance thing. It could happen in practice.
It's a freak deal.
And so I'm just saying, for Baltimore, you've got so much positive momentum. Look what momentum did for you. You're a short week off San Francisco. You show up. You kick the shit out of the Dolphins. You're just mowing down elites, right?
Mowing down elites.
You're mowing down elites. So then you take a break. Like, what do you look like? And with the history of the way they played in the playoffs, I kind of wonder how they're going to play this. You know, in 2012, they had the 1 seed. They clinched the North. They rested 6 starters. They played Flacco and Rice for a couple series. I still think they can win with Huntley. And this feels like a spot where maybe the Steelers lose, right? Like, it's just because they also, I think, won in 2019 against the Steelers in this same situation. It's a little bit different because the Steelers needed the Titans to lose. Titans did not lose. But, you know, like the Steelers were playing for their playoff lives.
So you're saying the Ravens should play their guys
I'm
at
not
least
saying,
a little bit.
I'm just saying I don't have a take, Kyle.
But the numbers
what I don't want to have on my head.
30-19 versus 11-14 is an obvious one for me. If I'm a head coach, I'm saying, yes, guys, you have to wear your pads.
And it might be handing the ball off a lot early in the game and just getting some 9-on-7 out there.
Boots. Either throw it or throw it to the sideline.
So do you think this is a coach's decision or is it a coach's choice to go to his guys and maybe get the captains and be like,
it's a coach's decision. It's always a coach's decision. There'll be guys like on the Ravens that even if they play guys for a quarter, like there might be a guy who gets shut down. That he's just got some nagging shit, and they were banged up coming out of that game. So like there are guys that you just got to put a personal touch on and say, hey, like this guy shouldn't play anyways. But I'm just saying there is a devil's advocate part of this argument where everybody wanted to jump Brandon Staley about that thing. And maybe they had nothing to gain. I can't remember. But part of it is staying sharp. And, you know, like I will die on that hill that I'm not going to laugh at every coach that plays their guys when they don't have to.
And knocking your rival out of the playoffs.
And that's one for me where I don't know if that's something that, like, say they're up late in this game. Is there a calculus for Harbaugh to say, like, who do we think we'd rather eliminate from the field? Who do you think's got a better chance of knocking off these other elite teams? Because it's them and it's some other teams that can get beat by anybody, right? And I don't know if that anybody includes Pittsburgh. I don't know if it includes some of these other teams. So I'm not saying coaches like make decisions based on that.
That's a loser mentality, though.
Is it?
I think so. Like
it's
you just got to. I feel like it's like you're thinking ahead.
So
but
win
just
at all costs.
It's just win, win. So you don't have.
Why not play your guys?
Because I think that team. You probably believe in your heart, like, yo, our backups are still better than whoever they're going to put
What
out
I'm
on the
asking,
field.
and it's an open-ended question, it has nothing to do with what I think, but is there anything in John Harbaugh's head where he's like, you know, like, for instance, we're going to get into the NFC in a little bit. You think if Detroit had a chance at the end of the season to not play the Rams because they look like they could play the Rams and they had to lose a game to play somebody else, you think they would lose that game? I think so, rather than having Matt Stafford come to, or, you know, in some fantasy scenario, hypothetical. So the point is, like, there are teams, and they have the luxury to not worry about it because they're that good, but some teams might say, hey, we don't like our matchup in that first round.
We can change this.
We can change this. You know, so anyways.
I hear you.
I think
there's a lot of time to sit and think, you know, when you're these guys.
I had it happen to me the one time I was going to make the playoff with the Bears,
and there's
with
a lot of people
with the Vikings and Green Bay. And the Green Bay, they kind of played soft at the end of the season, and they let the Vikings win, so they would play them in the first round the following week. and they beat the hell out of them. And the Bears would have gotten in. That's when we won 10 games that year.
So it happens, you know, and so
he got fired.
Intentionally or not. It just happens where things work out for the better and not for the Week 18. But there is a mirror image game in the NFC that we're going to talk about in a little bit that has a lot of implications. But here's what it sets up. The second thing it sets up, that Baltimore win, not only that Baltimore game against the Steelers and the implications there, but ultimately Buffalo and Miami. And this is going to be playoff football. Because for Buffalo, it may very well be playoff football, because if Pittsburgh wins, then Buffalo has to win to get in. This whole run that they've been on, it's kind of like going to New England and saying you can't just run the ball. You're going to have to throw the ball. And they weren't great, but there was no shortcut. Now there's no shortcut to get into the playoffs. For Miami, it's 6 or 2. For Buffalo, it's in or out. This is going to be fucking huge. And they moved it to Sunday Night Football, which I think is big for football fans anyways.
Yeah.
But on top of that, what it does for Buffalo, and I think
this was a CBS game?
I think it does a good, I don't know. It was maybe, and then you lose Romo, and now you got to watch, because I love hearing Romo react to Josh.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's what it does for Buffalo, Kyle, and you tell me as a player, and Nate, you tell me as a player. But I think this helps Buffalo because they're not looking at that score. It's either two types of pressure, and they're both good.
Destiny.
Number one, hey, we're playing with house money. We could be playing in Buffalo. If we lose, we're still getting in, okay? Right. The number two kind of pressure is almost even better. It's more uncomfortable, but as a player, it might get more out of you, and that's you got to win and you get in.
That's it.
Those two kinds of pressure they could be feeling Sunday night, I feel good as a player. Like you're going on the road, it's you against the world. And they played well against the Dolphins for the most part. You remember that game last. Here's what's interesting about this little rivalry that's popped up. Each game has been different. Okay, in Miami last year at the beginning of the season, it was hot as fuck, not an excuse. Buffalo had a bunch of guys down. Miami got the win. Okay, that was a lower scoring game. They got the win. The game in the snow, that was the closest thing to two full-strength teams. And that was a classic, and Buffalo pulled it out. Then you get Skylar Thompson against Buffalo in the playoffs, right? So you don't get the Tua rematch or the trilogy. This year, in the beginning of the season, Bills were at like Super Bowl full strength. They've lost some guys, but they've replaced some guys pretty well, I think. And now this matchup is going to look unique in its own right. And I think the key for Buffalo is can they execute the same game plan they had in week 2 or 3 or whatever it was? And I think they can, because the game plan there was take away the flats, have the corners play the run, play them up a little bit and lock down the perimeter. And there are risks there, right? Like if you're playing cover 2 and you're playing aggressive, like that honey hole's bigger,
20 yards down the field and the whole sideline.
Yeah, but for Buffalo, they brought in Rasul Douglas. That's huge. And I thought Rasul played really well yesterday. Like the reason they brought him in is I mean, he's a zone corner with really good instincts. And he can play certain coverages better than others. They've kept him in good situations, and he's flourished there. And he's got championship, DNA, being an Eagle in 2017. Those turnovers that they created at home yesterday are the reason they won that game. Not the offense, not Josh Allen, who did not play well, who missed a lot of balls, okay? And he's been missing balls the last 2-3 weeks. Part of me has wondered, and I've wondered out loud, and this isn't caping for Josh. People are going to tell me I'm caping for Josh. But when you've got a guy that's part of the quarterback run game and they pick that up over the second half of the season, as football players, not everything that's dinged is on the injury report. And if you're a thrower of the football, I can imagine that certain little things, if you're a guy who runs the football too, can linger.
Yeah.
So hopefully it's not an injury, but he has been off. And I think you'll get his best Sunday night. I really do. But more than anything, I think it's just going to be an incredible game with a lot of atmosphere.
Is Mostert going to be back?
I hope so.
But I don't know if Waddle's. They said Waddle might not play. Okay, so if Waddle doesn't play, I know you're down Trey White and you're down Milano and that sort of thing, but you got DeQuan Jones back. The backers have picked up well nicely behind him. McDermott's still a good coordinator. Do you think you're much worse off than the first time you played him? Because Waddle's down. Because now you got one guy to worry about a little bit more. So
the Bills
with
are
Mostert,
3-point favorites.
The Bills are 3-point favorites,
and the Chubb injury is a big deal.
Chubb injury's big. Holland
officially
will see.
out with an ACL.
And that's terrible for Chubb because he was starting to play really well. He was starting to live up to that trade because that trade was one that for me was like,
head scratcher.
but he was playing well. And now you're down Jalen Phillips, you're down Chubb, you're down Howard. Now they're a really good defense. They have a lot of pieces, but how many is too many to lose? And maybe Howard's up. But they lost Eichenberg last week,
and they blitzed the hell out of Lamar. Lamar had a high success rate. It's all about how Josh Allen's going to be dealing with that pressure rate.
And Josh has been getting pressured for weeks now. He got pressured a lot yesterday. And in the middle of the offensive line, they got beat bad in some situations. The middle of that pocket, they had him throwing off his back foot. So can Miami do that the same way? I don't know, but this is going to be an incredible game. I lean Bills because I'm just not going to come off my spots on who I think teams are.
So do you think that the later game, if we should be worried about now Buffalo has a little bit more time in Miami to hang out distraction?
No, I don't think so.
Before.
I don't think so. They've gone to LA and taken care of business in night games.
LA's not Miami.
I understand.
No, I think it'll be a benefit because there's vitamin D.
Tinder is Tinder.
There's vitamin
those guys.
D, which is not in Buffalo, so they're going to be in Miami. The weather's going to be nice. They'll go on a walk.
Yeah.
They'll get some nice lunch. They'll actually feel really good. Vitamin D, which is huge for your recovery.
And Miami primetime games, not so great. And both of these teams coming off a game with the Ravens, right? Like Ravens and Pats, very, very, very physical teams. Baltimore probably maybe more so, but like New England's still physical. So both these teams early in this game, it's going to feel like the Dallas game, I think, early in this game.
Have we sobered up on Joe Brady?
No, I haven't sobered up on Joe Brady. Josh has got to make the throws.
Yeah. Man, Stephon Diggs would have been.
Yeah. So I cannot wait for that game.
Madden throw.
And for Miami, what's at stake if you lose is obviously you got to go to Kansas City, and you think you had a tough time with them in Germany.
Dude, that
like you'd be at Arrowhead, and Nick Bolton would be back because he wasn't there the first time. So it's not where you want to go if you're Miami. There's still a chance for Miami. Like Miami, if certain teams get beat, Miami can make a run.
I'm mad at Miami, man.
Oh, it didn't take you long.
Man. It's just Tyreek. It's just like
Tyreek's the problem with Miami,
bro. It's not, but it's just honestly, he has one big like costly drop. It doesn't look just like you talked about earlier. It doesn't maybe seem like it because of the scores, but like the flow of the game.
No question.
He has like a big drop, won a game.
But let me ask you something: if you're the greatest show on turf, is one drop a game going to kill you?
No.
Is that the difference between 19 points and 40 points?
But they're not the greatest show on turf.
But
you're not.
The Ravens were yesterday.
The Ravens offense might be better than Miami's offense.
But I don't believe they're the greatest show on earth without Mostert. Like
that's a moisture thing.
I think he demands more in a defensive game plan when he's back there just for play action and whatever it may be that other teams right now, even though Okun, whatever
A-Chain. They really like Okun. They really like A-Chain. They really like A-Chain. Here's my concern with being now moisture, as you call him.
Yep.
They can't split those carries. And like A-Chain's not the biggest guy in the world. Like, so how many times are you going to give him the ball in the game? And for yesterday, like he was a lot of their offense for a long time.
Yeah.
And so I guess my point is both teams have injuries. Some are more long-standing. Some might be newer. Who's going to be able to adjust those injuries? The Bills have been adjusting for weeks, and they're getting guys back.
Claypool, step up, man. Step up.
Yeah, Claypool.
Block the noise out and just step up. But you still got time.
But they still get boat raced.
Nate,
I know.
They do.
I know. I'm just saying.
I saw somebody say that those two drops were the difference in the game. At some point, the Jim Jones cult that's going on down there has to stop with the fans, man. Like you're going to end up on the ground with a Kool-Aid cup next to you. Like, just walk out because it's not. That's not the difference in the game. Those two, there are teams that are better than you. There are offenses that are better than you. If the Dolphins want to win, and this was my point coming out of the Dallas game. You know why that was so impressive to me? Because the defense won that game. The offense played their part like any other good offense would do. Came up empty a lot, forced them to kick field goals. They did, but more than anything, the defense won them that game, right? And so I think if they want to go on a run, they got to keep the points down to like 25 a game. Yeah. And if the defense, they're playing an elite team and they're chasing 30 points, ironically, Miami has showed us they can't do that in these big spots.
They're the most explosive offense, and they can't play from behind.
Well, they're the most explosive offense, and it's 19 points a game.
Paradox.
Look back. You're mad at me. You're mad at me. You're mad at me. Look back at every time the Dolphins have played a playoff team the last 2 years. How many points a game they've scored? It's probably 19 on the head.
19.
So the point is, you can get mad at me, but what I'm telling you is the defense has to play better, and it wasn't even close, and they're losing guys. So that's my worry about Miami. They can go on a run, but it's all about matchups.
So he said moisture, and he said Okun for Mostert and Achan.
Yeah.
Achan, and he's changed it a bunch. They do this segment with Charles Barkley on one of his shows. It's called "Who He Play For."
Yeah.
And they show 4 faces, or they show a face, and then they have 4 teams. And Barkley has to guess which one he plays for. I think it would be a fun segment to do with
Nate. That'd be awesome.
Who he play for?
We'll do it next. We'll rip it. We already ripped Studio J from TNT, so we'll rip that too. But the team that Miami might have to go play is Kansas City. And after yesterday,
buddy.
Okay, I'll just say this: they found themselves in a hole because Browning can play. Okay, like Browning's on a contract where he's probably going to end up back in Cincy next year, and the shame of it is he can't make a lot of money. But like looking off Snead to buy time for Higgins on the corner blitz, beating the blitz in the red zone, using his legs. Holding a safety on 3rd and 2, like these are big boy deals on the road at Arrowhead, and you got a 17-7 lead after that Trey Hendrickson sack. Kansas City's got a chance to answer. Kelsey drops the ball. It's right off the mark. Like there's a bunch of stuff before the half where they have a chance to.
What's so funny, Nate?
They have a chance to get a touchdown. And MVS drops the ball, and you're just like, again, dude, again, like it's just every time. And you come out of the half, so you fuck the 2-for-1 up. You come out of the half, since he's got the ball, you're down 17-13, right? And since he's driving, and you get a hold, they're in the red zone. But then something interesting happened. Okay, this is hopefully the biggest moment of the Chiefs season. I'm not trying to talk them into being contenders because I don't know if they are. But Willie Gay, who was pissed off at Omenahu in the red zone's been a sticking point for the Kansas City Chiefs. You saw him on the sideline. He was pissed, and I don't know if it was because Browning got out again or what, but he came through on that 4th and 1 and knifed downhill and made that play, and then they went. And you know why they went? Because the next 2 possessions, something very interesting happened. Okay, the first one, they take a shot to MVS. Surprise, they don't hit it, but it's right there.
Oh.
And I'm like, okay, they're taking shots. Like just a simple shot, okay?
On
and
the
then
crosser.
And then they go back to Watson for 41 yards. Oh, gasp, there's a flag. It's same old Kansas City thing. It's a hold on Dax Hill.
Yeah.
So they get a break, they take shots. They go down, they kick a field goal. Okay, they didn't score touchdowns down the stretch, but Miami won a big game last week doing just that. Okay, so with the defense like this, kicking field goals is enough. And the next possession, you get a little Mahomes magic where I lose the ball. He's so elusive back there, and he's pumping, he's turning, and he comes up, and he converts on a 2nd and 8, and there's a flag, and you're like, oh shit. Here we go again. It's on them. And then what do you get the very next play? You get Rashee Rice, longest play of the season for the Chiefs.
And they can't score a fucking touchdown.
Which is, okay, baby steps. You know what about Bob, Kyle?
Yeah.
One of the best movies of all time. They're doing the baby steps. This is a start. And field goals can win you games. You just saw it. I mean, Cincinnati's giving people a lot of trouble, and you haven't won a game at Arrowhead.
The only guy I don't blink. When they roll him out there.
Yeah.
And he goes out there and he leans over and you can see that little hamstring and it's just like jacked as fuck. I'm like, here goes the machine again.
Well, here's the
6 for 6 yesterday.
Here's the deal. You talking about Butker? That guy's a machine. You got a great kicker. Use him. Kick field goals. You got to kick field goals. Kick field goals. You got a great defense, and this defense has come on in the second half of games. They did not lose that game on defense last week. They forced 0 completions the last 3 quarters. In the Buffalo game, they tightened up in the second half. There was a time when I turned to Nolan and was like, "Dude, this is what makes Kansas City dangerous in the playoffs. Is this defense?"
That was the last drive of the game last night.
And they tightened up the last 2 drives. You know what we had those last couple drives? You had multiple Karlaftis sacks. Justin Reed, turning into a pass rusher. Great moves.
2 plays in a row. Spags just putting him in the exact right spot.
You had Chris Jones sack. You had a Chris Jones pressure when Irwin's wide open. Like the pocket caved in on him in the second half, and I think a lot of it had to do with adjustments they made, but also just as a group rushing together and collapsing that pocket.
And in the biggest moment.
And they can do that. They might not have 5 blue chip guys up front, but they have Karlaftis, they have Dana, they have guys that can cave the pocket, and they got 1 blue chip stud, and they got pressures. They got backers that can run through. Like, this is a dangerous group in the second half of a game at home, and that's why Miami doesn't want to see them because they have the backers just like Baltimore has the backers.
Is the Chiefs' defense better than the Miami offense is?
Yes.
Okay. And then my other question is, did you see we heard Jamar Chase talking shit about this defense, and I know that this defense is super tight from being there, and all the pieces aren't the same, but the core of it is the same.
Yeah.
And I saw the way that defensive line flew to the ball down the field.
Yeah.
On short and intermediate throws, particularly Omenahu.
Yeah.
Getting down there and just
hustling,
spearing guys in the back.
Screen in the fourth quarter.
I'm like, that shit matters. And it's the same thing as when you play O-line. It's what I watched Creed Humphrey do yesterday. And I texted him before the game. I said, salt mine game. His rookie year, Andy Heck had him stand up in the meeting the night before the game. He was like, why don't you introduce yourself and talk about what's important tomorrow? And Creed stood up. He was like, I'm Creed. You guys know me. And I think tomorrow we should just bring these guys to the salt mines and find out how hard they want to work.
Which I'm like,
and I watched him play yesterday, and there was one play. He's got a guy with his arm straight up in the air, and he's just climbing his armpits. You know what I mean? 10 yards down the field.
Yeah.
I tweeted salt mines. After the game, Creed texted me 2 words, salt mines. And I'm like, this is the part of the season when Isaiah Pacheco, who busted for 130, a career high yesterday, can be that integral part of the offense where you can really wear people down up the middle. And then obviously you've got Kelsey to fall back on, Rashee Rice, the explosion. And man, MVS, can we figure out what we're going to do with him? Here's what you got to do. Find a way to get Washington to fire their staff ahead of time. Get
somebody.
Eric Bieniemy on a plane to Kansas City.
I know, but would he want to go back and be an OC?
No, not an OC. I'm talking about right now.
Yeah.
I'm talking about for the playoffs. I'm talking about the same thing that Vic Fangio did for the Eagles.
I don't know if you can do
it's called consultant gig.
Consultant
deal or something.
Yeah.
That's what's got to happen. Eric Bieniemy, the ward. It's like, in the movies when all the guys are fucking off in their jail cells and they're all like, making ramen noodles, and then all of a sudden you hear clink, 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 and it's just the dude with all the keys and the wooden thing. He's just rattling it on the cage. It's like, guys, we better get our act together. That was how EB was in that building. Like, if you weren't on your P's and Q's, you had to answer to EB.
So you tell me he would yell at the quarterback?
Dude, those two are so competitive and so on their P's and Q's.
Like Sean Payton?
And it's not only the quarterback. It's everybody. It's all those receivers you plug and play for the jet sweeps and the motion and the motions. EB was the guy that made it all happen. So get him on an airplane.
He's the detail guy, from what I understand. He's the guy that, like, if you weren't on your shit, you were going to hear about it. And I don't know if they have a guy like that. 2 housekeeping items from that game. Well, I want to say this. Cincinnati might be the reason they looked the way they did with the explosives in the run game, but you got to keep doing it. You got to keep taking shots. You got to keep pounding the ball. Cincinnati, I want to shout out Trey Hendrickson. We put that social out. Somebody in the chat asked, who today reminds me of myself, and I said, like, Trey's gonna have more buckets. I mean, but Trey reminds me of me when I was at my best. Was Trey? It was the same mindset. It was the same, like, technique, the whole thing. And so Trey reached out to me. He saw it, and he's like, "Dude, thanks, man. That means a lot. Like, the whole thing." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's awesome." And then 2 days later, I open up a package at my house. Reads like, "Hey, you got a package? It's from the Bengals." Trey gave me a new jersey, so I got the New Orleans one,
That's amazing.
And then I got the Trey Hendrickson with the not Paul Brown, whoever it is. It's Paul.
Paul Brown.
The Paul Brown logo stitched in the jersey. It's an orange 91, and wrote a really nice note, like basically for Trey, when I was to him like, Kyle Vanden Bosch was to me. Like I had the DVDs of Kyle Vanden Bosch on my
Vanden Bosch lit the way down the path for you.
Yeah, and I didn't play like Kyle Vanden Bosch. I was a different player, but the hustle and just watching him like go about his business, that meant a lot to me. And if Vanden Bosch ever told me that I was a great player, which he didn't, I would have been over the moon. And, I think Trey, even though he's me and better now, it's like that was cool of him to hear that. And it was cool for me to get a jersey. I hadn't gotten a jersey in a couple years.
Mine was Steve Smith Sr.
Steve Smith Sr.? You would have played like Steve Smith Sr.
That's so funny.
Funniest thing about Steve Smith Sr. is...
What, motherfucker?
Yeah. I grew up a Panthers fan, as you know.
Take this outside.
And we go to Carolina.
You jag.
Just punching people.
Yeah, jag ass.
We went to Carolina, and I got ejected, and they threw beer bottles at me on the way out.
I remember that. Fuck you, Carolina.
They thought I was flipping them off. I was pointing to the guy that threw a beer bottle at me. And And there was just all these narratives after the game, and I felt terrible because I loved the Panthers growing up. I had face paint, went to the games and shit, and I'm getting ejected at the stadium.
You're like Jair Alexander. They didn't know him.
They didn't know I'm from Charlottesville, And then the worst part was Steve Smith and I are talking like after one of the scuffles, like real close to each other, and we're just talking, like me and Steve. We didn't have an issue. And after the game, people thought me and Steve were getting into it, and I'm like, I would never, dude. He was one of my favorite players, and Kyle.
Steve would have killed me on Tuesday.
Yeah, and Kyle modeled his game after Steve. So
you watch me play, you know that.
The clip, the best Steve Smith clip ever is Steve Smith versus Akib.
Yeah.
That clip of them going at it during that game is absolutely like football. Like if you like football and like two people who are assholes and like super competitive, just watch that clip.
It was like Dion versus God, who was the receiver in there? They're like they hated each other.
Well, I don't know, but it's like Mike Evans and Lattimore, which we didn't get yesterday.
Or it was like Jalen and who did Jalen fight? Who was Jalen getting?
Jalen Ramsey?
Like 3 years ago?
I don't know.
There's all these matchups. To your point, like there's nothing more football than watching two alphas.
Last thing, you're gonna like this. Wishing a happy birthday to Andy Heck.
Happy birthday,
Chiefs
Andy
offensive
Heck
line coach, Kyle's old offensive line coach today. Happy birthday! Got the run game going.
We should call
AJ Green, Kyle.
Okay, and then
AJ Green.
It was AJ Green.
Like, you're on the Green Light podcast. Great win yesterday.
Yeah, he's not gonna say anything. So all we have left to sort out in the AFC is that this whole AFC South mess, right? Jacksonville took care of business. I felt like this is a game where Trevor might have played in another scenario, but Jacksonville and Doug say, hey, we trust Beathard. We trust the defense more than anything. The defense got it done. Josh Allen broke the single-season record in Jacksonville. It was 14 sacks. He's got 16 and a half now. He had 3. He had a hat trick. So good for him. And, Beathard did a good job against the blitz. So he got them out of this spot.
No turnover.
Did not turn the ball over. That was executed to a T by this team, ironically, because they haven't executed anything right. But executing this game plan, they got it done. It was Carolina. And now they've guaranteed that if they win this week, they win the division and they're in. Okay,
you're in.
But you've got Houston and Indy who got wins. Houston, big day from Stroud, big day from Will Anderson. The young guys, Stroud's got, Anderson's got 7 sacks now.
Slowick blueprint game. They don't have to do anything too crazy on offense without any turnovers. You just go out and win the game. Let your defense make some plays here and there.
And that was a big win yesterday, but the win against the Titans 2 weeks ago was the biggest win of their season. And it was just because they finally slayed the dragon. They held Derrick Henry down. They found a way
still bleeding this
to stay in that game. And Derrick was still bleeding this week. And so, that was a big win yesterday for them. Indy had a huge win. I thought they had it in control from the beginning. That shot to Pierce on 3rd and 1 with Spillane in Minshew's face. That was a huge play, and it set them up to kind of have control of the game. They tightened up defensively at midfield. They forced a lot of punts and drives to stall at midfield. And the Indy defensive backs, like I know Devontae went off in the second half, but a lot of no-name guys competing their asses off, making plays. They scored on an opening drive again. Like that's been what they've done every game, it feels like, including game 1, Indy and Houston. They came out and they had control of that game. So, I just think for Houston, it's going to be not getting jumped in this game. They're way different than they were that first matchup. There are some guys who are down, but I think this team's grown up. So, it is the game's in Indy, right? And so it's going to be a huge atmosphere. This is going to be another game that feels like a playoff game. And if you remember in that game, Richardson had played early in that game, got knocked out of that game. The QB run game was something they had to prepare for. They don't have to prepare for it now this week. Texans pass rush, 12 pressures, no sacks in that game. So, they have to get home, and they've been getting home more. I think that's going to be the big difference is how much better that pass rush is. And Indy,
rankings,
their pass rush is a lot better now. They're up near the top of the league in sacks. So it might be as simple as which offensive line plays better.
Yeah.
And I thought Indy's offensive line did a really nice job yesterday. So, huge game. The way that lays out is whoever wins that game is in the playoffs, right?
Right.
And if Jacksonville loses, on top of that, you win the division. And so, like, the loser's the odd team out, even if Jacksonville loses.
For Houston, they feel like to me like a team similar to the Rams. I mean, even though we've got like a super old quarterback in LA and a super young quarterback in Houston,
Team you might not want to see.
the formula is if you've got a damn good quarterback and you've got a smart guy running the show on offense, you've got a defense that's reliable, you tend to win more than you lose. And for the Houston Texans, they may be just young and puppyish enough to go in there and beat somebody in the playoffs. And I mean, I do look for them to get after it in Indianapolis. I think that it does come down to the quarterback at this point in the season. And Gardner Minshew, I just don't know if it becomes a shootout if he can hang with our guy.
I almost feel like if the Texans get in, they're more dangerous than the Colts. And I think most teams would
what's
agree.
Zach Moss' situation?
Well, Taylor's back, and Taylor looked good yesterday.
Yeah, but they're a two-back team.
They are, and
with Steichen.
because Steichen, like, listen, that drive where they went to kick a field goal in the fourth quarter, I think they ran the ball 7 straight times, and on the first drive, I think he was 5 for 25 or something like that, Taylor, and they kind of went away from.
Can he do it again?
You got to stay with the run game. You got to stay with the run game because these guys up front are playing pretty well for Houston, and so the only team left that we really have to talk about are the Browns, and that. There's 2 games this year where the under felt like locks in prime time, and it was Pittsburgh and New England, and we know how that game went. It was like they hit it in the first quarter.
We used to say we're going to take the Browns to the Super Bowl. So you got to go take a shit. Remember we used to say that when we were kids?
Well, I never said it, but it's pretty.
Like the Cleveland Browns have an opportunity to go to the fucking Super Bowl. We're not talking fecal matter here.
Yeah, and if the Browns want to go to the bowl, usually that's a process that takes place in the bathroom. But it could take place on the field this year.
Yes.
And so, Kyle, that was so well put. The question I have is where do you rank among AFC teams? And you guys said it earlier, and I keep forgetting to bring them up, but, like, there are 2 teams, in my opinion, that have the best chance to go to Baltimore and win, the Bills and the Browns. And the Browns, I mean, they can do it on the backs of their defense, but their offense has
new life.
A new life. And I think the Jets defense, every defense has their breaking point. Like when you've seen them in some big spots late in the season, they don't look like an elite defense, at least on the scoreboard. And, you can't put it on their offense not showing up like the Miami game. Like their offense moved the ball early. Mm-hmm. Their defense just got shredded. Mm-hmm. And, like when you talk about being down Cooper and still shredding that defense, like Aaron Rodgers' job got even harder last year, kind of looking at this team and thinking they'd be much better as a team than they have been this year. And I think that's why you got to take that performance with a grain of salt a little bit. But I still think Flacco and the run game and the defense and the vertical threat that he poses and Amari poses.
Stefanski Coach of the Year, Flacco Comeback Player of the Year.
Yes,
that's what I have bet in the last couple weeks.
How funny was it Flacco dozing off on the bench, bro?
Yeah.
Pretty funny, but he's older. I kind of
I know, but that's amazing. Like I did my job, and I'm on the bench and I can just chill here.
Yeah.
But I'm chilling so hard that they caught me dozing off a little bit.
Well, we do know that your level you don't realize how exhausted you are in the moment because you're so spiked up from adrenaline. But when you sit and get that moment of silence, that's when you're at most
you can kind of fall asleep in those.
Yeah, like middle of the game, you'll be on the bench and you zone out so hard you don't even.
Here's where they can't fall asleep. With the turnovers. And I think somebody brought this up, and I was talking to one of our listeners on Twitter.
I have to pee.
And he was saying, I can't trust the Browns because of the turnovers. Now, I don't know how that plays out throughout the playoffs. I don't think that's going to be an impediment to them winning a playoff game. But when you look at the teams in the Super Bowl over the last 10 years, all but maybe 2 of them had positive turnover differentials. And Cleveland is down at -7. The Chiefs last year -3. I think Denver had a negative differential in 2015. I could be butchering this, but the bottom line is the vast majority of these Super Bowl teams have positive differentials. And so I do think there's something to them turning the ball over. And, on the road, that becomes an even bigger problem.
Yeah.
And they are going to have to go on the road. But I do think...
But then what they can say, even with those turnovers...
They're going to create some.
The good thing is,
the differential
on the other side,
should control for that.
Yeah.
Although they should have a week of rest because they're locked into that 5 seed. They can rest people this week.
How much do you
wouldn't shock me if they're a favorite over, let's say, the Jaguars in round 1.
Yeah, it would not shock me, and I would take them to win that game. If they play the Jags, they can win that game. They can beat the Dolphins. They can beat the Chiefs. They can beat the Ravens. There's no team they can't beat, and there's no team they can't lose to.
Right.
Because of their.
Do you think that like they're probably like the most feared? Like if you had to choose for a different team, like who do we want to see first? Like is it like
as far as teams coming to play you?
Yeah.
Like the teams that are coming to play you, that's a spooky sight. Even though the defense hasn't been as good on the road, and that's something that they've got to answer for in the playoffs. But that Achilles heel has been turnovers, and so we'll see if that.
Joe Flacco hit a naked boot out the blind, so he went out left. You don't do that with a 39-year-old.
Kevin Stefanski is a coach and a half, man, and I think that's just kind of what's been proven out this year, and probably should win Coach of the Year. And like you one of you guys said, Flacco should be the comeback player of the year.
Yep.
And David Todd and Njoku Heap.
And my prediction is coming together right now. If they keep winning, I said like a few weeks back when we were asking like how would you write the end of the script, like if you were a script writer. And it will be Joe Flacco just coming back and almost running the tables and running through. But to go, if he gets a chance to go to Baltimore and finds a way to win that game.
Same thing with Stafford.
In Baltimore.
Here's my bold prediction. Here's the bold prediction I don't mean. But if I say it and it happens, at least I posed it. But like both those guys win against their old teams on the road. It's possible.
That would be huge for Cleveland because, of course, like the Ravens exist. They were the old Browns. They got ripped out. They hate the Ravens.
I'm not saying they're going to win, but I am saying they have a shot, and that's all you want when you get in the dance. Okay,
Staffy's going to lose his fucking mind.
Oh, Joe Flacco. Okay,
Joe Flacco.
San Francisco, they got the win, just like Baltimore. Lock up home field. Quick ad read, though.
This podcast is brought to you by Cash App. Know what your money is doing at all times with real-time transaction alerts and card lock. What's that you say? You just lost your card? First, lock it up with a simple tap. Great. Now that you've locked it up with a simple tap, let's brainstorm places your card could be. Under the couch, in the car, on the golf course. Look it up with a simple tap. In the airport, in my baby stroller, at the bar, your tab is still open. Definitely lock it up with a simple tap. So to recap, we don't know exactly where your card is, but with transaction alerts, you can have peace of mind about where your money is and what it's doing, and your Cash App card has card lock. So you can worry about everything else, but not your money. Good luck out there.
Don't worry about that.
That's money. That's Cash App. Cash App, the exclusive financial services partner of Greenlight. Download it in the App Store or Google Play to start saving today.
Beautifully done, Kyle. And for the San Francisco 49ers, they got a win. Beautifully done by them, rebounding off that tough game. I'm not going to talk too much about that game. It kind of went how we thought it would go.
Brock bounced back.
But the bottom line is they are going to host playoff games, and they have home field advantage. And for the Rams, that's good news, right? Because the Rams, they had to root for the Niners the past couple weeks, and now it's finally come to fruition where the Rams escape with a win. The irony of, and the reason I'm bringing this up is obviously for people at home that don't know this, San Francisco is probably going to rest some starters, just like Baltimore. Whether it's a good thing to do or not, that gives the Rams a better chance to lock up the 6th seed because that's what they want. Right. I think if they go to Detroit, they love that matchup. San Francisco giving them a chance to not having to go play Dallas. And like Matt Stafford, you saw how he played against the Blitz yesterday. Not as great. They had trouble up front, but they got it out a win. Couple picks. Here's the irony for me that Mason Crosby, who was just on the Rams, misses that 54-yarder. And the Rams still have kicking problems of their own. They missed a couple extra points, but I thought, overall, you got your big play from Puka Nacua. You got your running game with Kyron Williams.
He's going to get 1,500 yards.
He was blocking his ass off. In a year where C.J. Stroud doesn't exist, he's your rookie of the year offensively, and you can't say enough about what he's done. I think this is the floor for a team like this that can run the ball. Even if you throw 2 picks on the road, you have a chance to win because you have good playmakers and you have a run game, and the defense has played
run game.
The defense, as we've talked about, has played better than we expected them to. So the guys up front, Kobe Turner. Yep. He has 9 sacks on the year, and I don't want to say that too loud because I have a ticket for Jalen Carter for Rookie of the Year, off the Defensive Rookie of the Year. Now that those odds have not changed. He's still number 1, but this Kobe Turner guy in LA. If he was playing on a better team with 9 sacks as an interior guy, threatening to break the rookie record for the Rams held by Aaron Donald, like you're talking about him as a rookie of the year, defensive rookie of the year.
With the way you just laid it out.
Yeah, Byron Young is coming on. Like they are playing better on defense, but they have to win this game.
Oh, they cut him. The Rams.
Yeah, they cut the kicker. So who knows what they're going to do with kicker, but the bottom line is they got to win this game.
That almost lost them the game.
They got to win.
Point conversion by Tyrod Taylor. Decision not to.
I feel bad for Tyrod Taylor.
Chris?
Yeah,
Who had a great game. Like he did a great job.
Yeah,
he would have completed the hero arc.
I feel bad for him, but this is what it comes down to for them. They go to San Francisco. I think they can win if San Francisco rests some guys. I think even if San Francisco was at full strength, they're a team that's tough for San Francisco. Even though Shanahan's own McVay. I think when you look at the matchup earlier this season, for a long stretch of time, nobody had played San Francisco as close. I mean, they were right there. If they go to Detroit, and let's talk about Detroit, like because this feels like a long time ago, but Detroit lost that game to Dallas on Saturday night. Ugh. When it comes to the matchup, I feel like Detroit had to walk out of there feeling pretty good. Like they should have won that game. Now, if you're the Dallas Cowboys, you could say, hey, we shouldn't have even given you a chance. Mike McCarthy, bad clock management. I don't know why you're throwing there. It's popped up this year against the Chargers. It's popped up a ton of times for Mike McCarthy. This is like a pattern of behavior where he can't manage the clock. Okay, you could also say if you're Dallas, well, we fumbled at the goal line. That rule's stupid. Every time that thing comes up, people are like, we got to change the rule. But that's 2 weeks in a row that you guys have fumbled at the goal line.
It's the best coveted rule. Position on the to your point, you say it's the best rule?
That rule,
I think so
if
too.
you fumble it into the end zone and it goes out, that it's a touchback.
It should be punishable by death.
Yes, absolutely. Like there's no way in hell there should be a rule where you get that ball back.
Here's where it might change. You don't get the ball back, but maybe you start at the 5.
You ever heard
something like that?
The ball back.
No. You don't start at the 5. The other team starts at the 5.
Instead of the 20.
If I got a beautiful girl, I take her on a date. I bring her home.
Oh my God.
And she's like, "Would you like to go up to my place?" And I'm like, well, absolutely. That's why that's why we're all here this
yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you get up to the door, and all of a sudden you're just like, is she gonna say, "Let's walk to the
5-yard line"?
And try
the next guy starts at the 5-yard line.
Or is she gonna say, "See ya"?
Next guy starts at the 5-yard line, though.
That is a crazy.
No, but it's true. It's true. It's true.
Punishable by death.
Yeah. And speaking of this game, that reminds me.
One if you agree.
That reminds me of the scene in Step Brothers where everything's going great and then they fart in the tuxedos. And that was kind of like Dan Campbell.
Now
in this
the tuxedos seem a little.
Yeah, now the tuxedos seem a little creepy. Like going for the 2-point conversion again at the 10-yard line. We're going to talk about all that.
But have we ever seen a coach have a trick play that is so tricky that the refs
got tricked?
They got tricked.
Yeah. Well, let me just finish saying this before we go into that thing. Like Dallas came out of this thing, lost Tyler Smith. Like who knows what's going on with his foot? Not good news. Terrence Steele's been getting beat like a drum. Aiden Hutchinson was awesome. Mm-hmm. The defense played better for Detroit. Like they really did play better. They looked a lot better. There's a lot of things for Detroit you feel good about. Like you went to Dallas and made Dallas look different than they've looked at home all year. Yeah, Seattle played them tough, but that was a shootout. You really won a game because they won that game.
You want to talk about this?
We will in a second. We won a game against Dallas in a low-scoring game at home. And you said, hey, would Jared Goff be able to keep up? Would you? And he didn't play great. And part of Detroit – it's not a new thing, but you know that like Jared Goff's not always going to be better than the other quarterback. And there's situations where, and I got a lot of respect for the guy, but there's situations where there's going to be a better quarterback on the other side, and there's going to be a lot of rushers, and there's going to be a ferocious defense, and you might play the Niners, you might play, I would have said the Eagles a long time ago, but not. You might play you might play the Cowboys again in Dallas, and that's what all this came down to. The end of the game, like. This situation, everything that was on the line. You want to talk about the Rams this week? The Rams you might have played yourself into a situation because you lose that game and San Francisco's resting starters, right? Because there's nobody chasing them, where now the Rams beat the Niners and play you at home, the matchup you don't want. And, maybe you don't want the Packers matchup either, but the Matt Stafford coming to town thing, I don't like it.
No.
Okay. And so, like, you played yourself in that situation, or the refs played you in that situation. And on top of it, for the Eagles, like, they're sitting there dog cussing the refs. They lose that game, and Dallas wins that game. And now Dallas has the NFC East and 2 home playoff games. So for the league, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but it is good for the league that Dallas gets 2 home games. If you're talking about dollars and cents, and you know the playoffs are better for the league when the Cowboys are in it. And so, like, you could say at the end of the game that they blew that thing honest. But you are opening the door for people saying, why was it Dallas that got the call here? Yeah. And I just want to say this about that call. You've got a brilliant 2-point conversion call. You have a couple all week that you work on, and you're like, big situations, these are our plays.
It's going to hit. They
go motion the first play, call timeout. You lose your first play, right? Then you go to your second play, which is that big trick play. Then you get backed up on the bad call, and you go again. And then you go again after you get bailed out on the penalty. That's where I have a problem. And Dan had balls the whole game. Like, the fake punt was ballsy. They didn't get anything out of it because they get down the red zone. Tank Lawrence continues to be one of the most underrated guys in the league. He's created more negatives than any good rusher over the past 10, 15 years at edge, in my opinion. Like, he is a negative machine, and them not being able to get points down there, going for it on fourth, and then the next time laying up and kicking a field goal, I just don't know what they kick that field goal, and then Dallas goes down there. It was 10-10, and they take a 17-13 lead. Like, if you're willing to go for 2, a lot of people say that's a situation where you're like on the road, you're playing a better team, you don't want to go to overtime.
Just get it done.
A lot of people look at situations like that and say, hey, well, you have confidence in your guys to make the plays. But I would have had confidence in my guys after that first situation to go to overtime and beat these guys, because you showed enough during that game that you could beat these guys. And so that's where I have a problem with Dan. It's going on 4th and 3, then not going on 4th and 3. And then late in the game, it's taking all these 2-point conversions, and every time you take them, you're one less play in the book. And I know they're from different spots and that sort of thing. Now let's talk about the call, Kyle. You've been an offensive
Before
lineman.
I talk about the call, this feels to me like for Dan Campbell and the Lions, like the double doink was for the Chicago Bears and Matt Nagy, guys that we consider to be really good coaches, young Coach of the Year type candidates. I hope it isn't the case, because I saw what happened there, but. As it pertains to the game, the call, I mean, a couple things we know. Jared Goff told Taylor Decker, and it's on video, go report. Taylor Decker, and for people at home, report means a guy who's ineligible usually, a number in the 70s or the 60s or the 50s.
Or the 50s.
Walks up to the guy with the white hat, and you almost make a mockery of the process. It's like, reporting! You've heard it happen in practice and games.
But you don't have to say that.
You don't have to do it loud.
You have to do this
You have to make eye contact. It's kind of like, I am reporting. Like, you have to say reporting.
Eye contact, words.
But the white hat is not present for the – he's on his way out. So what I saw from the ass end angle of Taylor Decker is his right elbow sticking out, which to me tells me that he did report. Mm-hmm. And I know Skipper, whether he reported or not, that's here nor there, but 68 did report. And I know Taylor. I trust him. I liked what he said after the game, or what he didn't say after the game. But here, in this situation, you're robbing an offensive lineman from a dream play, a dream scenario. You're robbing a coach from being able to instill confidence and faith in himself with his team by going for it, having an answer, having it down pat, and they executed it. And I know you have issue with going for it, but they almost had it again. Yeah. They almost got him down there, the drop. I mean, it was close.
Yeah, but again, when you make that decision.
Somebody's lying.
When you make that decision, Jared Goff's a little off with that ball. And those are the little throws that, we don't talk about.
But they're
not a deep shot you overthrow or that sort of thing. You have to know who your guy is. And do you trust Jared to make that throw in a situation where it's got to be right on target? And I just wouldn't have done it. I would have. I loved going for it.
It was a shame that it was put in the hands.
Here's my thing with the. I just hate about like the NFL and the referees and the call, and then for the viewers, like
for the money line bettors.
We have this referee, the head of the referee, watching the game with us and chiming in and telling us that basically they got it wrong.
And they can't fix it.
What's the point of having the whole thing? Hey, they're going to New York to help them speed the game up and they can get calls right. Like, why can't, when it's something that important, why can't they just figure that out?
Why can't the red phone ring and say, hey, put him back
out? You got it wrong.
Hey, put Dallas out there with 13 seconds to go.
Like, you got it wrong.
That's
like,
what
whatever.
It should be.
And to Dan
they had
Campbell,
two-pointers to come back and say that. It wasn't like they kicked off right after.
But to cape for Dan Campbell just a little bit, I would say, yo, it's the end of the year. You don't want to have your guys out there for an extra quarter, an extra whatever. Like, you don't want that. Like, you know what I'm saying? You don't want someone to get hurt.
I got no problem with doing that. I have no problem. But after the first one doesn't work, after you get,
it's the mentality. You're like, hey, we're
then
going
on the
for
four
it
because of the penalty. It's not the same as a 2-point conversion. Like, the math does not support it. And so, I love Dan Campbell, and I love that he doesn't seem to have. He looks at every situation individually. He's not like a slave to the numbers. He's not a slave. He just it's a feel thing and it's aggression, and I love it. But sometimes he just gets himself into these problems, and I think that
the way he crumpled up that paper at the press conference.
Man, I'd hate to be that piece of paper.
And he said today that he wrote the play down for the referees. He wrote it down before the game on paper and said this is what would happen.
And that's the worst part about it.
And it's the same crew that got the call wrong in the Kansas City game.
And I don't think they.
And the Bears game, they didn't call at the end of the half.
This guy, the Lions are now 0-5 or something when he calls.
Against,
and he's been demoted from the playoffs.
Yes.
Yeah, they're out.
They have like a minus 200 yards.
But demoting him from the playoffs is an admission that this went wrong.
Yeah, I know.
And so it changes. Worse. It changes everything.
It's almost worse. Like, that's like watching. Like, as a fan, and you're watching and you're hearing, oh, the head ref is telling us, hey, they got that wrong. And it's just like, you're watching, you're like, yo, if he's saying that they clearly got this wrong, how is it allowed?
Well, then to have executive power.
I heard he did, but that could have been a meme.
It's unprecedented, and I saw one of those aggregate tweets as well.
Yeah.
But, like, it would be something.
But for Detroit, I feel like you got to come out of this game, and this can't be the type of thing that wrecks your season, because I've seen it before where something goes wrong like this for a team. And
bury the tapes. Don't show it.
And watching that meltdown on the sideline, watching Skipper, and I get it.
Yeah.
But that's the type of thing that can just can kill the mood.
Because it's
and
then if and when you guys lose down the line, like, guys are gonna be like, well, if we didn't get jobbed in that game, we would have played here.
Yeah.
And we would have did this.
So it's a tough deal, man. But it is what it is, and the Eagles had a chance to take advantage, and they couldn't. And I think, like, Eagles got exactly what they wanted Saturday night. They got Dallas to win because they knew they could leapfrog Detroit in that situation, and they could win out and still win the East. And they show up, and like Eagles fans that have been waiting for this a long time. I'm not going to be able to tell you anything revelatory. I think the number one problem with this defense is personnel. And I don't think that's changing. And a number of those plays, whether it's them not being able to sort out a two-man concept, them DB getting shook by Michael Carter out in the field, like a bunch of little issues. Ringo at the goal line, totally flat-footed, giving up inside release on 4th and 4. These are not just things that. They happen to other teams, right? Like, you watch around the league, any of those things happen on a weekly basis, but they happen so spectacularly bad with the Eagles. Like, Ringo didn't have a shot. He was totally flat-footed. Michael Carter shook Ricks so badly, it was like, it wasn't even the two-man game, a guy almost broke an ankle. Like, there's just so many situations on the back end. That toss to Connor in the second half, the angles are so bad. The run support's so bad. And, this defensive front, I feel bad for them because they're actually a strength on most teams. You can unlock 100%. That strength. They're not who they were last year. And we said that coming in.
Coupled with, like you're saying, they're not coupled with anything on the back end.
It's the compounding effect of, the back end being shit and not being able to stop the run with a light box anymore because the backers are so bad. And you get Avonte Maddox back, and usually with Howie Roseman, when he sends somebody to rescue, you're like, oh, it works out. Like, that lifeline worked. But Robert Quinn last year didn't work, and I was behind the Robert Quinn thing. It didn't work, but it wasn't a necessity. This year, to stop the bleeding, the Shaq Leonard thing had to work out. It's not going to work out. The Maddox thing coming back, the Byard thing, Maddox, Dortch is the guy's name. He got beat by a guy named Dortch, who's actually a pretty good player. It's just a funny name.
Yeah.
But you think he's coming to the rescue, it's going to save the day, but some of the biggest plays that you gave up were the guy that you were waiting to come back on, and the same thing with Byard. You sign him, the coverage hadn't been great. Shaq Leonard doesn't look like he magically got faster or younger looking. And so the personnel issues on defense are going to be the reason you lose in the playoffs. Hey, Eagles could make a run. I know I said last week after the Seattle game, the world's not ending. You're 10-4 or whatever it is. Most years, if you have a chance to win the division at the end of the year, you're pretty excited. I think 2017 made things a little bit tougher for the Eagles, right? Because the bar's been raised. But now you have joined the pack. You're part of the pack. And are you a good team? I don't know. Can you win playoff games? Yeah, you can. People want to put it on the offense at times and the whole thing, but there was a stretch of this game where Arizona had the ball for the entire first half basically, and into the second half where they came out and just did what they wanted and ran the ball. So even when they were down, I worried because they were getting exactly what they wanted offensively. You had that pick six was basically a gift. It was a great run back, but it was a gift. And the worst part about that was they had just got done with a long drive ahead of that, and then you got to go back out and play defense, and defense can't get off the field. So the Eagles' offense, they were scoring too quick. The defense barely had any time
Can't control
on the bench. Game. And so part of that is
run some half court.
Run the ball.
Run some
Even if the other stuff is working in a game like this, and you can take it from this team, you can just take their food. Take their food. It might take a little longer, but take their food and give your weakness a chance to catch their breath. But instead, I think Jalen Hurts ran the ball in the third quarter on a design run. It's their 9th run of the game. And so, this is something that keeps popping up for them. And another thing that popped up for them is trying to ice the game where they kick a field goal and not score a touchdown. Mm-hmm. They get a holding penalty on Jordan Mailata. And they've had this stuff with Kelsey before the field goal against the Bills, and there's a number of drives throughout the year where even their strength is hurting them a little bit up front in these situations where you got to close it out. So I can't point to one thing. The offensive scheme has devolved from last year. We've called it an imitation of last year. The defensive scheme is totally different. The personnel has changed completely, and most Super Bowl teams don't have to replace 2 coordinators. Watch teams that have to replace a coordinator off a Super Bowl run. Usually, they're still in it maybe because the other side of the ball is still intact.
Kansas City.
But when you lose 2 sides of the ball, basically, from a mindset and a game planning standpoint, it's going to be hard. And
the Chiefs without Spags.
Yeah.
EB.
It'd be like if Spags left the Chiefs
after the Super Bowl,
and Eric Bieniemy left after the Super Bowl. That's how you'd be talking about the Chiefs the same way, and they are in a lot of circles because these teams seem similar.
What if Dom was secretly giving out plays on the sideline?
And Dom not being there, ever since Dom hasn't been there, they've been really struggling. So maybe when he gets back, he's gonna get back for the playoffs, right?
Right. Playoffs or
playoffs?
Okay.
But the bottom line, if we're talking about things that really suck for this team right now, it's the personnel on defense. There's just no way around it. And when you lose in the playoffs, if you lose in the playoffs, we will be saying it's because of the defense.
What would they have to do to patch up right now at this point in the season?
We've thought through all the scenarios.
Time machine.
But I'm saying, so you as a coach, what are you doing differently in practice, or what are you doing to maybe get your guys up or whatever?
I would say try different guys, but they got guys off the street right now. There's just you can't dip into the bag any deeper. It's like when you're looking for something in your backpack and you've checked every pocket. It's just Ringo. It's just Rick.
The same thing again.
I don't think there's an escape defensively, and going into the playoffs is all going to be about matchups. If you go down and play the Bucks, that's no sure thing, but you can win that game. You go to Dallas. I still think you can beat the Cowboys, man, but you got to score, and that puts a lot of pressure on your offense. I don't know if you can beat the Niners.
No.
You know, and a team like the Rams, they're dangerous because of what you got going on the back end. The Packers, they're dangerous to you. So every team can beat you.
The Rams' strengths don't couple with the Eagles' weakness as well for the Eagles.
Every team in the dance can beat you, so you've joined the pack. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, like people want me to say something about the Eagles that might give them some hope. Here's the hope. You're in the playoffs. You can make a run. You know, we made a run with a backup quarterback a couple years ago, but that team was much better. And that team also, I can remember a time when, you know, Kyler Murray having the ball at the end of the game, and they should have let Dortch score because he was going to score, right? Yeah. Instead, you end up having to chase a touchdown with 30 seconds to go. I remember a time when teams didn't want to be in the Cardinals' position at the link trying to close out a game. I remember that. I remember it in 2017.
I remember it.
You didn't want to be...
I was on the other side of it.
Yeah, you didn't want to be running a 2-minute drill at the end of the game against our group, and you didn't want to be running a 2-minute drill against that team last year. But the things that you've done from a personnel standpoint and just the way the cookies crumble with the injuries and the scheme, now, if you're Arizona, you're feeling like Philly felt last year on defense in those 2-minute situations. Like, we are playing a team that is food right now. And when you look at the defense of the Eagles, they're a bottom 5 defense right now. Like, I would challenge you to find a defense that's performed worse than this defense over the last month of the season. EPA per play, they're down there. They're in the bottom 3.
30th.
Over the last what, Nolan?
Since week 12.
Since week 12, they're 30th in EPA per play on defense. So teams making runs with defenses like that, a lot of people like look over here at the Jalen Hurts thing. That's a shiny object. Jalen Hurts is good enough to be your quarterback. Jalen Hurts is good enough to be your quarterback for the next 5 years. If you end up looking somewhere else for a quarterback, you know, I don't think you can repeat the Carson Wentz, Jalen Hurts thing, and I don't think you should. I think it's about the defense, and you can fix it next offseason, but there's nobody walking through that door. Something you realize in the NFL after a certain point is like, they locked the door. Yeah. It's just us.
Makes me very happy to be a Bears fan because you watch that game and you watch the Bears defense and you're like, we got dudes. We got dudes all over the place. Different types of dudes.
And also, Jonathan Gannon, somebody just put this in the chat. I can't talk about this without talking about Jonathan Gannon. We came into the game and said Jonathan Gannon, number one, has done a great job despite the memes, despite the shots, the verticals, like his mannerisms. You know, he's an easy target and people got after him, just like they got after Sirianni, just like they got after Dan Campbell. By the way, Antonio Pierce talking about choking somebody until they go to sleep or whatever he said a week ago. I got no problem with it, just like I had no problem with the Dan Campbell knee thing. So go back and look at your timeline when Dan Campbell said he was biting kneecaps.
Yikes. I don't want to name names.
I don't want to name names, but some people made that a big deal. Me?
No.
No, I didn't.
No.
What about?
I was quite the opposite.
But I'm saying we're not naming names.
What about the Bills coach and the Al Qaeda thing?
It's a little far.
He wore a red, white, and blue shirt last
they're
week.
4-0 since that speech.
But like I said, though,
here we go.
If whether you're a 9/11 truther like Rodgers or you're McDermott, win one for Osama. Like, either one, you have a chance at redemption because Rodgers ran through. All it took was Rodgers running through on 9/11 with the flag, and everybody forgot about it. McDermott just needs to do that next year.
Was that 9/11?
Yes.
Yes.
God.
So here's the deal, man. Like, the Eagles, if they want to get in, they're going to get in. But if they want to win games, the defense, the bleeding's got to stop. And Matt Patricia, who I think is a good coordinator, has got to pull some shit out of his ass.
A.J. Brown not talking to the media, big deal, not a big deal.
It's a big deal. It feels like things are. I mean, like, we've all had those days. I understand. I'm not attacking A.J. Brown, but it's a canary in the coal mine. It's like things are bad canary. Right now. Yeah. So, but to finish what I was going to say, Jonathan Gannon coming in this game, you knew he'd know Jalen. Right, because he's practiced against him the whole thing. You knew their D coordinator, Rallis, was there. He knows this offense. But what I think you underestimate is how well he knows the defense and the personnel and what gives the personnel problems. And the Cardinals gave them problems all day. And Kyler Murray, ball barely touched the ground in the second half. Okay, James Conner might have had his best day this year as a Cardinal. Michael Carter had his best day as a Cardinal. And who's it happening to? All these things. It's the Eagles.
Kyler Murray throw.
Yeah.
Gamer.
He's a gamer, dude.
Bend his arm.
I'm glad he's playing well because he gives them a lot of excitement next year. Because when you see this offense that the Cardinals have put out on the field the second half of the season, they're a real NFL.
That's why
offense.
they're on my future America's team list.
Yeah. Okay. So, anyways,
bye.
Off of that, you have we're in the NFC, Detroit and Dallas. We talked about that. We talked about the Eagles. All they had to do was win. We talked about Chicago. We think the decision is the coordinator. Let's talk about Chicago and who they beat this week, and that's Atlanta. And I just think when you look at that, the Falcons absolutely blew a golden opportunity to still be playing for everything this week. And the Falcons had to go to Chicago in the snow and win. And what a scene. Again, like Kyle, you would think the Bears were playing for the playoffs. The vibe in that stadium, that tells you all you need to know.
They weren't playing for the playoffs. They were playing for beyond. They were playing for their future and who was going to be in that locker room. And they know.
And that's dangerous.
And they know when they rally behind their quarterback, great things happen. And I tweeted yesterday, it's great to see the city of Chicago get behind the quarterback position like this. I've never seen this kind of support. But granted, I've never seen anything like Justin Fields in Chicago. I mean, the crowd chanting, "We want Fields," it's awesome. So that's an inspired group of people.
And for the Falcons, you're supposed to be inspired. You get your back against the wall, which is again like it's a reason that I think what the Bears are doing should be taken seriously. And to win a game like this, to lose a game like this for the Falcons, their entire season, they ran out of time. They fucked around too much. They waited to make the move to Heineke, and I think that cost them. I mean, Ritter's turnovers, a couple games that you could have, you don't have them now, and you have to win that game, and you can't. And maybe they weren't going to be that good, this year. Maybe we kind of look at Drake London and Pitts and Bijan and, some of the pieces and the defensive additions, and you're like, oh, maybe it was a lot of smoke and mirrors, no matter who was playing quarterback. But I do know this. Their lifeline, Arthur Smith's lifeline seemed to be Chicago. And it seemed to be Justin Fields. And that lifeline dries up the same week, it feels like, that you get knocked out of the playoffs. And so I don't know what the future looks like in Atlanta, but they had a chance. And with the Bucs and the Saints playing and the Bucs having a chance to take care of business, they blew their opportunity. And the Saints now still have a chance. They play
the Falcons.
They play the Falcons this week, and there is a chance for both those teams.
Yeah.
Albeit
they just need the Bucs to lose to Carolina, which doesn't seem too likely.
No, it doesn't seem too likely. But Baker looked human yesterday, and Carolina doesn't have to lose. They can play the spoiler. That's a dangerous spot for a lot of teams. Like the pure joy of knocking somebody out of the playoffs is awesome. And so
I've never done it, but
there's going to be a lot on the line this week. And I love this time of year. I can remember my second year in Philly when we went 4-6, and then we had to make a run, and things had to fall right for us the last game. And one of my favorite memories was going into the locker room after the game, having beaten Washington, and then watching TV in that tiny little coach's office. Mm-hmm. It was me, Dom, Howie Roseman, Doug Peterson, Kelsey, Fletch, and maybe Nick Foles. Like, there was just all the old guys were in there, and we're watching, I think, Minnesota and the Vikings, and
Minnesota and
the Bears or the Vikings, and we needed something to go for us, and it happened on that little TV in the bowels of, and truly the bowels of FedEx Field, because the whole place is just a big shitter, and we're in that tiny office, and it was just being together in that moment and not knowing what's going to happen and having to root for something else. Those are the special moments, and we got in the playoffs, and double doink happened, and we almost made a run. New Orleans beat us, but the whole point is a lot's going to be decided this week, and some teams might get left out who could make a run, and some teams are going to slide in and make a run. And so I love this time of year. I love the idea of, and we're going to talk about incentives later in the week, like guys have incentives. Mm-hmm. There's draft stuff on the line. You've seen the Lovie Smith situation where he's supposed to be tanking, he's defiant, and actually gives them the biggest gift that they could get.
Right.
In C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson and all this stuff. And so I just cannot wait for this weekend, even if a lot of these games seem like, who cares? There's something to care about in all of them. Packers-Vikings last night.
Woo!
And the Packers, they look like they believe right now, and for Minnesota, I got to say, O'Connell, who I think is an ace of a coach, like you covet that guy. Like having him in the building, look what he's been able to do with all these different quarterbacks, but he hadn't done it with Jaren Hall yet. And to make that decision, okay, and maybe the turnovers with Nick Mullins was what he had on his mind, and maybe it was Josh Dobbs and something we don't know about, the reason that his play declined. Maybe it was the Vegas game that just scared him off. But the bottom line is picking Jaren Hall to be the guy with the playoffs on the line seemed a little curious to me. And I'm not saying for sure that they did some calculations and were like, hey, we don't want to be at 9 wins. We want to be at 7 wins because maybe they have something up their sleeve or there's a guy that they're going to be targeting in that range. But it didn't feel like an honest try. Like, to me, it felt like the Vikings rolled the guy out there that would look like he was trying, but they gave up that big lead and they put Mullins back in, and they can still look like they're trying, and they're calling timeouts at the end of the game down 33-10. I don't know if that was their honest shot. And for the Packers, good for them because they took care of business, and Jordan Love looked really good. He missed a couple big throws. It could have been 45-10. Like, that was an impressive deal going on the road with your playoff life on the line and winning like that. And obviously,
Chris Collinson glazing him last night.
Who was? Chris Collinsworth.
Collinsworth.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Collinsworth.
What did he say? Because I had the sound off.
He was just.
And I'll tell you what, you look at the old pictures here, and there's old Brett Favre. He's got no feet on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And there's our guy, Jordan Love. Some 20 years later.
You like that, Chris?
Tariq's like, oh, yeah? Similar? Does it look familiar to you?
Look familiar to you, Chris? We're up here in our tuxedos, and they're giving Aaron Jones and Jordan Love champagne after the game on the field. Like, it's just
sparkling.
It's a weird time of year, and I think
fight after the game.
There was a little fight after.
Yeah,
the game.
a little scuffle.
Aaron Jones looks like Aaron Jones. That's a big positive for them. But they did this without Christian Watson. Reed left the game at some point. Like, they're not doing this with a bunch of all-stars outside. I don't think Wicks played.
No, they're growing
Wicks
together
didn't play.
Now.
So he did this with down multiple guys. If you're the Packers, not just this year, but like you're excited about the future.
Yeah, for sure.
And Jordan Love's a dude.
And you know, this just means one thing for football. The Bears-Packers rivalry is back.
It's back.
Ooh. And there's going to be 2 really good quarterbacks playing in that game.
And they play next week. Like, the Bears are going to want to keep them out of the playoffs.
This is what it's all about, dude.
Mercedes-Lewis Bowl.
That's what it's all about.
All right, so
let's hear a couple messages before we get to the moments.
Yeah, and hey, I just want to say this. We're talking about the one game we haven't broke down this week is Chargers.
I didn't know that
Broncos. Nobody knew it happened except for me because I kept hitting the live under. Just every chance, every
break. What's wrong with you?
Well, Kyle, what's right with me is I walked away with sectional off that. Like it's
a unit,
a couple units off of just knowing that these guys are not going to score 35 points.
So you want to make it sectional is not your unit. A section of a sectional is a unit.
Yeah, exactly.
But you got a whole section.
I got a whole sectional off that, or at least a Chase Lounge, and it was a good day at the office betting live unders. Same thing with Cincinnati and Kansas City, and that was miraculous. But the whole thing is, Broncos are in the news this week because of Russell Wilson, and we've talked about this. Like, this is the point where I ask myself, what's wrong with me? Because I'd have to act like I was up in arms I'd have to be manufacturing outrage to be mad about the Russell Wilson situation. And Nate and I were on different sides of this. Well, he's tilting his glasses. Nate and I were on different sides of this, but I didn't hear Nate talking about Jimmy G or Derek Carr or any of these guys that got benched over the last couple of years for contract reasons. So my question would be, what's different? What's different? And if you're going to say to me, well, Russell's playing better, that's fine. Then they benched him, protected their finances, and still won a game. If you're telling me they're still in the hunt, they won a game. I don't know what some people are so upset about here. And a lot of the people that are so upset about Russell Wilson have been making fun of him for 2 years. It's hilarious to me. It's peak 2024 now media.
Wow. No, yeah, I agree with that. I definitely agree with that there's people flip-flopping, but me, like...
Yeah, and that's fair.
I honestly... Like, for whatever's going on, I just hate that right now Russell is even in the question of being like the bad guy, where he's
not.
And that's what I don't like. Is just that people
who's made him the bad guy.
I think people are looking. Oh, why wouldn't he take that deal? Like, he should take that deal.
No.
Be a team player.
The
and it's like people like
Sean Payton.
It's Sean Payton.
No, I agree. I agree with that too. I don't like, even though it was a joke, the kissing babies and this and that, and it's kind of like making fun of his character. And it's just like, bro, like come in and treat me like a football player. Rate me as a football player.
Guy had his own office, and like guys, you want to talk about, for the most of his career, he has not been one of the guys. So like now, you're
listen
saying,
to any of the
like
guys
one of
from
the guys.
Seattle talk about him. They couldn't get in contact with him. They had to contact him through a liaison.
So I got
maybe they should do that again because they were winning.
I got no
They
problem.
had the best defense in the league.
They had a
nickname,
but that is an interesting one. You know,
why not?
Russell
like,
could be somewhere else.
Maybe put him somewhere else so it's not distracting. Everyone seems to have a problem with all his whatever.
Don't. So you're talking to a guy that doesn't have a problem with Russell and doesn't have a problem with what the Seahawks or what the Broncos did. Because
matter of fact, we like Russell Wilson.
There is a cap, and here's what's crazy to me. Everybody making fun of the Broncos about making a bad decision, a football decision, for the last 2 years with Russell Wilson. Now they're actually trying to take matters into their own hands, the people that didn't even make that decision, and say, hey, we're not going to fuck ourselves even worse. If this guy breaks his leg, we're going to owe him the 2025 salary. Everybody's going to look at them in that situation like, what a dumpster fire of an organization for not only making that deal, but then for getting him hurt and owing him all that money and setting yourself back for 2. So for me, like, somebody's got to explain to me, and I understand there's people in the chat that say, Russ, I feel bad for Russ. They did him dirty, the whole thing. Where were you last year? Where were you with Jimmy G? Where were you with Derek Carr? And you could tell me it's a different situation, but I would tell you nothing's changed for the Broncos this week.
Same backup benefited from both situations.
They beat the Chargers.
Same backup benefited in both cases, which was wild.
They beat the Chargers, okay? And I don't know who they're going to play next week or what their playoff odds are, but some people are freaking out like it's nothing. So what do you want that team to do? Somebody's just got to tell me. I'm open to having it explained to me why I should be mad, but I'm not getting there. I haven't been able to get there. So like, that's my 2 cents about the.
That was good.
That is my 2 cents about it. I don't want to be unfair to Russ. It'd be different if this was a guy on his rookie deal or something that hasn't been paid. This guy's one of the highest paid employees in Colorado. You think I care?
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
If Russ doesn't stay there, where's the best fit?
Minnesota's the leading. I saw some Russ odds for next year. Minnesota was.
Where's New England?
Shortest odds.
They're New England.
They're up there.
They're like number 2.
One thing I'll say about the Russell thing: people always talk about inauthenticity, like he's not authentic.
Right.
Well, we saw obviously in that interview, and credit to him for not bringing this up. It's obviously been a thing for a while now, right, Chris?
Yeah.
Goes back to that Chiefs game.
Yeah.
Russell hasn't spoken about it.
Yeah.
Amazing.
He was asked about it, and he spoke about it, and he handled it
with class.
It was an authentic conversation with an athlete who was going through something that's tough. But at the end of the day, it's a business.
Oh God, listen to this. Not the same situation. Russ is a Super Bowl QB. He should get respect. Carr hasn't done squat. Russ is not a Super Bowl QB right now.
That guy's a Dolphins fan.
That guy's a Dolphins fan. Okay. He's a Dolphins fan. No, nothing against you, dude. I mean, like, I totally respect the other point of view, but you can't just say Russ is a Super Bowl.
You can't erase it.
But hold on.
You can't erase it.
But,
you can't erase it either.
But it's irrelevant. When is it relevant? It's not relevant. Guys get cut that had great careers all the time. Guys get moved on from that did something 10 years ago all the time.
Yeah, it's not once a Super Bowl QB, always a Super Bowl.
You don't have diplomatic immunity like Shohei's translator.
No, it's not like being a sex predator, dude. It's not like it's stuck to you.
It's not like it follows you around in a positive way. I don't know where he's going, but
no, I'm saying if you win a Super Bowl your rookie year, it's not a guarantee that you're going to be that caliber of player in year 10. Now, Russell was an awesome player early.
But it's still on your resume.
He also benefited from having one of the best coaches ever and one of the best defenses ever.
But we're not even here to go back and contextualize his legacy. It should be totally irrelevant.
Yeah.
He's not a Super Bowl quarterback right now.
No.
But it's not his fault that they gave him that. They agreed to this contract.
But it ain't Sean Payton's fault.
I hear that. That's the organization. It's just the organization and the head coach.
Call the Walmart family thugs.
Well, I think
right.
The use of that word.
That's who owns them.
I don't care. I don't care. I'm not going to go into the use of that word because I don't care. Me and RC
Walmart, they're so thugging, they're going to start throwing up.
Okay. So when I talk to Ryan Clark this week, I'll probably be like, "Yo, that was wild," But like, I don't care. I know that was to make a point.
It's TV.
It's irrelevant. That word is irrelevant. The Russ winning a Super Bowl 10 years ago is irrelevant. What's relevant right now is we've been making fun of this organization for 2 years. We've been making fun of Russ for 2 years, and now all of a sudden we're going to take Russ's side, and the organization could make it even worse for themselves, but they're deciding not to do it. It's not like they took all his money. It's just, hey, man. No, he can't. And that's the point.
No, that's why it's fair.
I love it.
Right. And somebody said, I think it's less about Russ and more about Peyton handling a QB that he clearly didn't want. Mike McDaniels doesn't want Tua, but you see how he publicly supports him. That second part, I don't know about that. No, McDaniels has not said anything to say he doesn't want Tua. And by the way, if he did, I'd be like, see, I told you. But you can't take that away from me and then use it against me here in this argument. There's no way. And he yelled at Russ? Fuck out of here, dude. Please, bro.
You ever seen, they weren't saying this about EB last year and he was yelling at Patrick.
But this is a good point. Sean Payton, this is a good point, though. The Dolphins.
Not like that.
We'll close it.
Not like that.
What? Who?
At EB. They were saying that like.
Nobody said that about EB.
Not in those
words. Nobody
players
said
were
that
saying
about
he
EB.
was too hard.
That wouldn't.
And then mad other players came back and caped for him. Was just like, no, he's a good coach.
But players aren't saying anything bad about Sean Payton.
No, I hear you.
The comparable reaction that we could go off of is the media. The media said, and I'm not even going back to EB. The point to me is like coaches yell at players.
Period.
Oh yeah.
But the Dolphins fan, and I want to close this out, said Sean Payton and his ego and Russ were never going to work. He said Mike McDaniel's history, and we're going to get Jim Harbaugh. Bro, you don't let Mike McDaniel go. You know how I feel about the quarterback.
He said Mike McDaniel is history.
But the point is, Sean Payton and his ego and Russ's ego were never going to work.
He's on bath
and that, to me, is more of a – I can get behind that. You want to tell me Sean Payton's got an ego? Yeah, dude.
But do you believe that's right then? Like if my ego doesn't get along with your ego and we're at a work setting, like don't we have to work it out like –
If Russ threw for 4,000 yards and the ego got in the way and they were going to the playoffs, then it'd be a different conversation. But Russ is not the reason that they were in the playoff race this year.
There's a tolerance level. There's a tolerance scale. And, Chris, you can probably speak to this. You've had really, really talented teammates before, and there's a scale, whether they're like sane or insane.
Yes.
And,
it's the crazy hot thing.
So it's the crazy hot
thing that you've seen guys set up on Instagram.
Now, we've all heard Lawrence Taylor stories about how he was in the building or
he was crazy, but he was
when the fucking game started.
When he put on his going out dress,
there
was nothing like LT. When Antonio Brown was worth,
my goodness,
like what Tampa did with him that Super Bowl year.
McMahon.
You can live at my house. Like, you're a fucking psycho. You can live at my house because I want to win a Super Bowl. And when those guys stop being good or as good as they were, and I'm not comparing AB or any of those guys to Russ, but in a different way, if we're talking about egos and the whole thing.
If you have a brain, you get it.
You get what I'm saying. All right, but I respect your opinion. I respect your opinion if you disagree, but you can't win the argument because there's precedent for this, and you were not making noise about Derek Carr or Jimmy G or any other players that this happened to in the past, or position players, man, that this happens to
all the time.
All the time. Okay. So, anyways, let's talk about the mentions. But first, I got a message from our sponsors. You shouldn't have to worry about when you buy tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. It's the place to find last-minute seats. And the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find a ticket in the same section or row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code GREENLIGHT for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code GREENLIGHT for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And then, by the way, with Game Time, my son doesn't listen to this pod, but the Wizards play the Warriors. He loves Stephen Curry. Okay, so this is in like February. I'm trying to get really good seats for that game. Looking at game time, he's gonna freak out. If we can just get him to be close enough where Steph Curry can hear him cheering for him, I think that would make his year.
Are we going to get Steph Curry's shoes to replace the last pair of shoes he had?
Yes, that would be great. That would be great.
Chris, whenever you're looking forward to this football season, there's one thing that pairs well with every great moment. It's an ice cold Miller Lite. Whether you're at the stadium playing fantasy football, watching the game at home, or the bar, Miller Lite is here to make your football season taste like Miller time. From kickoff till the clock runs out, you can't go wrong with a Miller Lite in your hand. Even in overtime, grab a cold one. It's the only light beer with a taste worthy of our national obsession. Because what's the point of having a beer if it doesn't taste like, well, beer? It's got only 96 calories, 3.2 carbs for 12-ounce serving with a smooth taste and a crisp, clean finish. You get the taste you crave without the calories. So this season, crack open a light beer that hits your taste buds so hard you'll feel it in your heart.
And I would say this to RC, my dog, RC. Greg Williams is good friends with both of us. If Sean Payton's a thug,
what is Greg Williams? Guilty by association.
Was it Bone Thugs and Harmony down
Ladies
there in
and
New
gentlemen, we got him. Ryan Clark, you're now under arrest.
Yeah,
associating with thugs.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess my point is like Sean Payton ego, the whole thing, but I'm not going to get as excited about this. Okay, so we got mentions, and then we're going to get out of here. Best flight. What you guys got?
Green Bay Packers. Very quick.
Oh, really quick. Just got to get over the lakes. I've got the Browns. Short flight home. You get to spend New Year's Eve in the Mistake by the Lake, as some people call it.
It's a great town.
I think it's a great town. They got the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Shout out to my buddy Ezra in Cleveland.
They got other things.
He knows who he is.
But yeah, best flight. I mean, it's got to be good. Rams had a good flight too. I mean, just to escape that situation and know, hey, we're going.
Depends on what the winds were.
Yeah, it's true. Headwinds.
Worst flight, Florida State. Ball.
Well, technically only half the team was on that flight, as Danny Cannell pointed out. So half the guys didn't have to take that flight.
I work with Danny Cannell.
Danny, I like Danny. Me and Danny have gotten into it before, but walking through that entire rental house was just absurd, dude. I mean, he started upstairs, walked out, down, showed the big screen TV, and then finished the video on top of a mountain. It's a gorgeous house, but that doesn't win you the argument.
So, did you do a worst flight?
Yeah. Worst flights can be Detroit. Okay. There could not be a worse flight than that flight home.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, it's awful. Late at night.
You're right.
Dallas is further than you think. It's like way down there.
Everyone hitting you up.
Detroit's further north than you think.
Everyone texting you saying you guys got jobs. Like, they showed it on the TV. You can see him reporting.
People afraid to ask Dan if he wants peanuts. Like, it's just.
Bevel Conway, the Rose Bowl, Michigan, Alabama. It's vitamin D overload. It's the granddaddy of them all. And you know what? I think it's the coolest setting for a football game in the world.
It is, dude. They should do the Super Bowl there, but they don't have enough luxury boxes. They should build a shell around that stadium.
Like they did the Soldier Field.
No, but like temporarily for the Super Bowl. Like just put some big elevators outside the stadium where if you go into the luxury box, you just pop up there. And there's construction scaffolding. Whatever you got to do, that fucking stadium should host a Super Bowl at some point. And it never will. Bevel Conway for me was Thursday Night Football. The combination, when the Browns look good, they look good, man. That orange and brown and the numericals.
A little Hokie-ish.
I mean, yeah, but I think the Hokies, actually, the colors aren't as bad as people think. It's just the Browns have superior unis.
Yeah, the uni.
And the Jets, on that field, a grass field, it looked thick with 2 C's, that grass. That fescue looked thick, but it didn't slow anybody down. People were playing offense out there.
I'm going to go ahead and give you my anti-Bevel Conway. It's David Tepper tantrum.
The David Tepper tantrum was unbelievable. Kyle?
Big B's for big baby.
Sometimes rich people aren't that bad. I think sometimes rich people get a bad rap because they actually are decent people. They just have a target on their back. And then some rich people like David Tepper just ruin it for all the rich people because they act like a caricature of a rich person. Like, this is the most dismissive, disrespectful thing.
And there was a Duval County resident who really might have spared Mr. Tepper his life because there's a guy in a Jags jersey right in front of the box. He almost climbed up in the box.
There was a guy trying to climb up in the box. If I'm that guy, I sue. I don't know what I'm suing for, but I sue.
So much money. It's going to cost him so much. Did you see
damages.
The owner throw the drink?
Just damages, bro. And the fact that he did it in front of people
on
just tells you how
pissed he was.
How fucking entitled this guy is.
I saw what happened.
And when you you saw it.
I just named it.
He named it. And the thing is, it's a direct reflection of how your football team looks. This guy doesn't know anything about football, and that's his message to fans. When Jimmy Johnson got up there Saturday night, he understood something. And I know that it's a lot different. David Tepper just lost the Jags, and his team's a joke. But Jimmy Johnson got up there and he said, and thank you to all the fans that hated the Cowboys. And you guys are what makes this thing go around. It was that moment of like, here's an olive branch, a wink and a nod to people that might have hated me. This team still do. But this thing we put on out here is the best thing in sports. This league is like nothing else. And David Tepper needs to remember that when he treats fans that way, because the fans are what makes this game go around. And, you know, I've gotten into it with fans before. Usually they had it coming or something. But generally, to treat fans like this is just embarrassing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just embarrassing, and it's a direct reflection of who they are as an organization. And I have zero faith that if you're a coach and there's two options, Ben Johnson escaped the Titanic last year, not signing there as their head coach. I'm not coaching there. Like, good luck. You got to find somebody else.
So I had asked on Twitter, like, quickly, what would make you mad enough to throw a drink on somebody?
Oh, plenty of things. But it's not going to be my football team losing and hearing a chirp from the stands. Like,
chirp.
You know, just you can't take a chirp. I mean, I'd spill a drink on somebody that did something to me interpersonally. But, I mean, not from everything from the vantage point to, like, the throwing the drink down. It was like a metaphor for class.
I got a quick anti-bevel.
It was fucked up.
Anti-bevel Conway. So, Sugar Bowl Media Day. We have QB1 Quinn Ewers sitting up at the podium with absolutely no one around him, and the entire media around the young Manning boy, who realistically, if the game goes the way it's supposed to, he's not even going to see the field. He's not even going to play. So, like, what are we doing? Like, for media, like, one of the biggest games of the year, like, what are we doing, and what are we projecting for the future? That obviously whatever's going to get clicks more is the more important
You're
thing.
Mr. Marketing.
Quinn,
he's Mr. Marketing.
I am.
He loves marketing.
But I don't see the marketing, like, behind hyping
it.
up the backup quarterback.
I see it. Because guy's making more NIL money than I'm making sitting here doing this podcast. We're earning a hard living here. And this guy's just sitting there at the side table. I mean, there's a buzz about the guy is all I'm saying.
I get it, but I don't
Je ne sais quoi.
It's a je ne sais quoi, Kyle.
Doesn't look good.
It doesn't look good. It looks it more than anything, it just looks like the day and age that we live in.
Okay, yeah. I got Hollow Man. Father Time going after Joe Flacco. He just hasn't caught him.
He hasn't caught him. Yeah, fucking joke's on you, Father Time.
Ain't happening.
You know, I see a little gray in the beard, but
Joe Flacco's dad looks younger than Joe Flacco.
He's got good genes.
Scary.
So I'm gonna go Hollow Man, Tyrod Taylor. I mean, I feel bad for the guy. I mean, just his career arc. He's pretty good. Like he's been a good option for teams, and I like him as a guy. But like down to the bad luck he had with the Chargers and that needle, and then, you know, like earlier this season, one of the biggest spots for the Giants was against the Bills at the goal line, and he makes that major snafu where he checks a play to a run, and they end up running out of time. I think
forgot about that one.
And then yesterday, he has a chance to get that 2-point conversion, whether you throw it or run it. Like, just don't do that. And so to drive them down to possibly win that game at the end of the game, miss a field goal, I just feel bad for Tyrod Taylor, Hollow Man.
Solid dude, though.
Good dude.
Fly on the wall. Roger Goodell, as it pertains to the Lions-Cowboys situation, when it was happening, where was he the next day? What's the correspondence with people around the league, power players, the whales, so to speak? What are they saying?
Yeah, I think fly on the wall for me as a gambler, if I could get into any 2 rooms in the NFL this week, or if I could just get into any of the rooms and figure out who's playing who and how hard they're playing, because, there's some edges to be had this weekend, and I'd love to know. We'll go to the next one. It's going to be St. Louis Memorial Award. I'm going to give it to Richie James. Anybody know why out there?
Because he's playing football for the Chiefs. He's getting opportunities.
Well, he's playing football for the Chiefs, but there was a point in that game last night after Cincinnati scored in the second half.
I love pop quizzes.
Where they kind of squibbed the ball. Like, it just went short, and it took a really bad bounce. And Richie James being able to fall on that thing, I think is the difference between them winning that game and not winning that game. It was a huge play on special teams for them to be able to come up with that ball, and Richie James deserves some credit.
I like that.
He's also not named Kadarius Toney.
Dude.
Did they sit him?
I haven't seen a lot of
Look,
yeah, haven't seen him on my big sheet.
There's such a problem there, but I mean it's got to be looking better. So STL Memorial, Harrison Butker.
Yep.
No missed extra points on the season. 1 missed field goal. He was great, 6 for 6 yesterday. They've been riding him heavy for the last 5 weeks. The defense plays well. Butker gets field goals. Now we're doing best seat in the house.
Yeah.
Rams. Boarding the flight, watching Pittsburgh beat Seattle.
Oh, that's so beautiful, isn't it?
Subsequently, getting them a playoff spot.
I mean, I could share that. What other teams probably had good seats in the house for watching their rooting interest
49ers.
lose? The 49ers, right? Saturday night, they're chilling. They're like, oh,
no, they're walking up the field. You see Debo, and someone's holding up a phone, and they're like, yes.
Yeah, but just the fact that Saturday night, Detroit getting the loss, if we take care of business against Washington, we're gonna have mini bye.
Even better, it was New Year's Eve, so you have bottle reservation tables, and it's just like one of those things. You're on the fence. If you lose, am I even going out? And
worst seat in the house or fly on the wall. Another one would be the Eagles players trying to get their tables Saturday night. Or Sunday night after that game. Even going out in public, I know just by watching this team play that some of those guys went out in public.
Oh. Yeah, I don't fault that. I don't like that.
I'm not going in public after that.
But you have to know what that entails and what that can come with in a city like Philadelphia. Like hearing the DJ be on the mic and be like,
Eagles players in the house.
It was a good day, but the damn Eagles lost, or the potential of even that little bit.
I'm not going to be out there for that.
Yeah.
And so, I just kind of wonder how that went.
Game ball.
Roquan Smith and the Ravens' second half defense.
And I'll give it to Lamar Jackson. I mean, I don't want to overthink this. Lamar Jackson is everything right with our sport. I said, it's fun for me explaining to my kids who they should watch and why. And I can remember a couple weeks ago watching the Eagles game. It just kind of came out. I wasn't thinking about it, but Devontae Smith made a big catch, or he did something smart, and I was like, Waylon, that's the guy. I was like, you want to watch a guy do everything right, be a great teammate, say the right things. This guy, Devontae Smith, is awesome. And I love being able to watch TV as a dad and look at positive examples and point to him. And Lamar is the guy yesterday that I was like, Waylon, you're not just looking at the MVP. You're looking at maybe one of the best teammates in the league. You're looking at a guy that after the game says all the right things. He's focused on winning. And when his teammates are around him, you can tell they're having fun and they love playing with him. And I think that's just as important as how good he is on the field. Is we were gifted this talent, and he could have been an asshole. He could have been all types of people. We've seen some elite players over the years act certain ways, but we are so lucky to have Lamar Jackson on the field, but also the guy he is. So I just want to give him his flowers as a football player and as a dude.
Got a game ball?
He gave it.
You got game ball. I'm gonna give it to Mike Tomlin.
Nice.
17 years straight, over 500 record.
Yeah.
So Steelers don't die, and Mike Tomlin, who
said the middle class is gone?
all the outside, like we said earlier, all the outside noise happening, and that team seeming like it's imploding. It takes a coach like this to string things together and to see them keep winning at the end of the year.
Here's the deal: we gave George Pickens some shit the week before they played the Bengals, right?
Everyone did.
Everybody did. and he went out and played his ass off. Last week, I employed a certain strategy because I wanted him to hit the win total. I started saying things about George Pickens on the pod. I said, he got a long-ass neck, bro. George is a weird name. You know, like how many wide receivers named George? So this week, I'm actually not going to say anything because I want the Bills in the playoffs.
Oh, I see.
So I'm gonna butter them up. Man, the Steelers, George Pickens, you're a Hall of Famer if you keep this up. No, seriously.
That's the old Belichick trick, right?
Yeah. You talk good about
you
the
big
people.
up your enemies.
Yeah.
So they take their guard down.
I want to see the Bills in the playoffs. I mean, I'd love to see the Steelers in for if they could both win, great. But yeah.
Let's hear your viral moment of the week, and then we'll wrap it up.
My viral moment of the week this week is going to Kyron Williams' mother, who is seen at the game when Kyron Williams is obviously trying to hand the ball to her in the stands, and a Giants fan, takes the ball, and the way she goes after this ball and has a textbook strip from this man is absolutely great.
Shut up.
Yes.
This guy sucks.
Look, and then that's the second thing about this viral clip is just as fans, like, when does it stop? And, like, you can clearly see that this is his mother.
This is Black Friday behavior,
Bro,
this guy.
yes.
It's just like mindless consumerism.
But it's just like, are you even that big of a fan? Like, what, you just want an NFL ball? Like, you're clearly a Giants
He's the
fan.
guy outside the hotel with the Sharpie.
Oh,
But yeah, like, and I'm a collector and I'm a guy, and it's just, even if you're that,
got a
it's just
collection.
like, bro, that's someone's mom. And when does this stop? Like, when does
And maybe
it
he didn't
stop?
know that at the time.
But even if it's a female, bro,
I know.
like,
Why are you wrestling over a ball?
That's clearly not going to you.
Yeah.
It's clearly not going to you, and it's something that we've seen on both ends this year become an issue or a meme. Or, hey, that player last week, it looked like they try to make it seem like he's snatching the ball from a little kid when he's clearly
Jack Jones.
trying to snatch the ball from a guy like this
Yeah.
who is trying to be kind of, I don't even know what you call that, but it just needs to stop.
I call
But I'm
that-
happy that the mom ended up getting the ball. And
Man,
also,
babies.
Zombie mode.
if you watch it,
Oh, I gotta have the ball.
if you watch it, Kyron Williams' dad, like, it's one of those things where he probably knows his wife. He didn't even budge in the situation. He's in the chair, just sitting,
She's gonna
chilling.
get it.
she peanut punched that
Yeah.
motherfucker.
Yeah.
I'm glad that she got the ball, but I just thought the way she snatched it from him was amazing.
By the way, Kyron Williams, really want to get you on the show. I didn't know you were from St. Louis. We got to get all the St. Louis guys on the show that are making noise in the NFL. Laporta, love to have Kyron Williams. Kyron Williams is a lot of fun. And
What
this
about
Rams
Sexy
team's
Red?
fun.
Sexy Red's from
We can get
St.
Sexy
Louis.
Red on.
Ski.
I don't really know anything about Sexy Red other than that, like, I saw her name a lot over the past year. All right, well, with that,
I would just like to be the first to offer condolences to Bo for not being allowed to go on the
Hollow
field
Man.
for any other sporting event because the Badgers just lost.
Hollow Man.
0 for 2 in the last
You
2
went to
days.
the Badgers game today?
He went to the Badgers.
Oh,
What was the score of that Badger game?
Honorary
35,
captain.
30.
Tune into facts.
Oh, I almost
Tune
bet
into
LSU.
facts
I'm
and the
glad I-
King. He might not even show up tomorrow.
No, because he was the coin toss guy at the Eagles game, and
Yeah,
then I mean, it's just like Bo Allen, Hollow Man.
Subscribe.
Yeah,
Tell your friends.
tell your friends,
Bring your friends.
bring your friends, guys. Have a very happy New Year. We will be back later in the week. Just something to note: Stanford C is moving to Fridays because there's not as much college football. I might drop a pod Wednesday solo. I got my new home studio up and running.
Looks
That place
good.
is great.
Saw
We were
pictures.
watching
ISO.
Yeah. Whatever. So check that out.
He's about to run an ISO.
I'm running
Cheers.
ISO. Yeah, ISO. Everybody clear
Basketball.
out.